the microphone. The time is 6 o'clock. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'll begin this evening with the remote electronic attendance.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to make a motion to approve the remote electronic attendance of 3rd Ward Alderman Mike Wendt, 6th Ward Alderman Kevin Schoonmaker, Alderman at Large Sonia Berg at the Committee of the Whole and City Council meetings of September 15, 2020.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Moore, a second by Alderman Waldron. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wendt. Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker. Waldron.
Aye.
Berg. Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye. I just thought I'd give a little
7 ayes,
pause
no
in there like
nays.
it normally gets.
Thank you. That motion carries. Do we have any questions on the agenda this evening? Or any changes, Marty? We will be now looking for approval of the financial committee minutes. Does anyone have any questions on the minutes as prepared by clerk? I'd entertain a motion for that approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Parker, a second by Alderman Moyer. Is there any discussion on that motion? Roll call, please.
Alderman Wendt. Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker. Parker.
Aye.
Mayor Acree.
Aye.
6 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just did the roll call of the ad hoc committee members. Okay.
We'll now begin with the informationals. The first one is associated with our council goal, number 6, review and evaluate alternative municipal service delivery approaches. Dirk Price will be kicking it off.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought it was important to provide a bit of an introduction to this priority and this goal before Mark and Marty talk about where we're at. Because of an experience Ansel Links recently had working here with the employees and staff. And I've already shared this experience with Marty and the mayor, and it illustrates a couple of things, and I'll tell you about in a second. One, for the need to review the history of this. A second, how Moline has been beset by some inaccurate reporting in the paper that's fanned some false rumors among the employees and staff. These false rumors have impacted morale and productivity, and they've also created the potential for some collective bargaining unit issues. And I want to set that historical record straight because out of context, it's just going to be more of the same problem. Among our tasks at Ansel Link for the city, in terms of how you manage risk, is the workers' compensation defense. It's largely self-insured because staff does a really good job of mitigating the risks, taking care to train the employees. Allison and Annette run a great program, and then we defend our workers' compensation core group of lawyers, works with them, defends the cases. You're largely self-insured. We have the reserves and go forward. And recently, that team, our lawyers, your staff, had some incredible results. I mean, 6-figure to the good results for the city compared between reserves and the outcomes of these cases. 6 figures, multiples of 6 figures to the good. And so I called the lawyers to congratulate them for doing a good job working with staff on that and for the outcome. And they reported back to me, they said, well, it was good while it lasted. To which I asked, well, what's the problem? And they relayed to me that in working with the employees and the staff here, they were told 3 things. They were told the employees believed that the city council had had a secret meeting where, using COVID as an excuse, they had voted to fire everybody and replace them with contractors, that HR Gov was interviewing everybody as a consultant so that they could figure out where they were in the work program and provide for the transition to the for the RFP and then to the people who would replace them, and that the employees were literally worried they wouldn't have jobs tomorrow, and that this was across the city. And they said that the employees pointed to a particular article in the QC Times in which statements from the floor here and other places were sort of taken out of context to say that's what city council was up to, and that it was all done in secret. Well, I went through this history with them I'm about to go through with you and told them to end that. That's a disservice to every single person here at the city and to every single person on the city council. Because the history is thus. We're talking about the review of the delivery of municipal services. That has been talked about in the minutes since 2018, almost 2 years ago. You started talking about the review of the delivery of municipal services. And from the get-go, you've said it was going to be done by outside professional consultants. And so the first one up happened to be legal. In February, more than 18 months ago, you hired a consultant, Rob Bush, who started the process to review legal. And before that process was done, Ms. Riggs and Ms. Keys resigned. And so then so there was no choice about staying in-house or going out. You did the RFP and it worked out for us. We're fortunate to be here, again, but that was the first process started in February with an outside consultant. In June, you then had your strategic plan meeting. Now, not all of you were in attendance. Aldermansburg and Potter were missing. But in June 29th of 2019, you can look at the minutes, which everybody's approved, Council reaffirmed its public commitment to review the municipal services delivery alternatives using outside consultants. So that's 18 months ago, right? That we're reaffirming what we're going to do, or 14 months ago, with an outside consultant like HR Gov. You also reaffirmed that we're going to try and look for ways to combine with your neighboring municipalities to see if there were ways to share services and reduce costs for everybody. That one doesn't seem to get much play either, but that was the commitment in June of 2019 publicly. Then, as part of the budget process last year, culminating in votes in December at 3 different meetings, you reaffirmed Goal 6, and it's on the second page of the budget. And the goal summary says, given revenue challenges that are being experienced by most Midwestern communities, it is critically important that municipalities provide core services as efficiently as possible. Given this reality, it is a priority of the City of Moline to systematically and regularly evaluate all municipal operations to ensure the local government is operating at peak efficiency. Proactively identifying and evaluating alternative service delivery methods, including contracting for municipal services and activities with private companies, should be undertaken to stretch scarce local revenues and provide Moline taxpayers with assurance that their tax dollars are being used prudently by the City of Moline. Every single council member signed off on that. The mayor signed off on it. In fact, you've taken no less than 10 votes in 2018 alone, publicly committing to that process. So for the employees and staff and people to think, or the QC Times, I'm calling them out, say that this was done in secret by the city council using COVID as an excuse is ridiculous. This went back more than 2 years, about 18 months, well before there was any sort of COVID. So the fact of the matter is you've always wanted to have outside consultants do this periodic review. So HR Gov is doing nothing more than was already planned for, and nobody has ever been told that they're not going to have a job tomorrow. So reviewing the history, hopefully we can put to rest this whole idea that we're out with a chainsaw to chainsaw off a whole bunch of employees. That's not the process. Mart and Marty will talk about what they're actually doing. But after we got this feedback that this is what City Council had done, I think you all need to know about it so that you can respond to it appropriately when you hear about it in the community. That's my introduction to Mark and Marty.
Thank you. And so now we'll have Mark Peterson address the council, please. We can hear you. Thank you, Katie and Mark. I appreciate the presentation, and thank you, Dirk, for the background. Do any of the council members have a question for any of the presenters? No questions? Do I have any remote questions? I don't think so. Oh, Alderman Plotter.
Do we have an idea of when you might be wrapping this up? Any sort of time frame with that?
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and giving us an update on this. I appreciate your time, and you're welcome to. Do you have anything better to do? 3 hours. Thank you. The next item that we have is an additional COVID-19 CDBG CARES Act funding. For $267,000.
Good evening, everyone. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Today at 2:47 p.m., we were made aware of our allocation from HUD, and it increased. We're getting $268,780, so a few more dollars there. So $268,780. In addition to our annual allocation from HUD, which was $772,647, we have received another $746,837. Did I say that right? $746,837, making it a total over $1.5 million for the year 2019. That's the largest amount that we've had in some time from HUD. Almost 800 of that is due to COVID, and then the rest is our annual allocation. Some of the programs that we're looking at doing with the new allocation is a disadvantaged business forgivable loan program, and then addressing shelter, food, and transportation. with those remaining dollars. Staff is just putting thoughts on paper right now. We hope to be back to council probably late October, early November, because staff is also working on the 2021 budget on that allocation from HUD. So we'll be bringing that forward probably in about another 30 to 60 days to you also. Tonight on the council agenda, you're approving the 2020 budget. So we have a lot of CDBG budgets floating around out there. And each one of them, takes some time to prep with the citizen participation. But luckily with the COVID one, we only need to have a 5-day notice to the public to have a hearing, and then we can start our process. But in the meantime, we're trying to finish up the 2021 and wait for additional guidance from HUD on any waivers that they might have for these programs. So at this time, I can answer any questions if you guys have them.
I think I said,
Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Parker, yes.
you're so not used to seeing me.
I know, I was looking at you
weird.
going, oh, who's that?
It's weird. So KJ, thank you very much. This is really great news. So our annual allocation, has it gone up at all? I know the COVID CARES Act and all that has gone up. Has their annual allocation changed at all?
I'm gonna turn to my coworker Tara, our financial guru, to answer that question for us.
Yes, over the last few years, our allocation has actually gone up roughly about 100,000 each year. So we started to see a downward trend where our allocation was going down. Now we're starting to see that upward trend again. So in the last few years, we started out in the 675, 700 range, and now we're up. Our latest is about 812,000
And
for our annual.
is that because of, obviously it's not a population thing, is it just because of why is it going up? Does HUD just have more money to spread across the board, or are we using it better, or how do we know why?
I believe it's a combination, because it's a formula-based grant. So part of it is based on our population, but I think a lot of it is how we're spending the funds, the timeliness of spending the funds. So it's really a combination of some various factors.
Well, great job on behalf of everybody, thank you. And then KJ, I have another question for you.
Okay.
I know part of the COVID money was to purchase computer equipment for the kids that don't have them in the Moline school system that live in Moline, as well as digital equity, internet access. How are we coming along on that project? Because I know school started a couple weeks ago at least, so how are we doing on that?
I'm glad you asked. Yesterday we met, Tara and myself, we met with Dwight yesterday in person. Today Dwight from Project Now. Today we followed up with a Zoom call with him and his staff reviewing the application and the process. They bought over about 38 applications yesterday. They just need to do some fine tuning of those applications. In the meantime, IT purchased 58 computers for us along with the Microsoft software. Project Now is going to come over and pick that up on Monday to start handing that out. And then it's just a matter of scheduling the broadband installations at those homes. On the flip side of the coin, we've been in conversation with the school district. They probably have passed on about 100+ locations to us. They're trying to fine tune the collection of that information, and then we'll pass that on to MediaCom for installation there.
Any idea what their time, how far out they are before they can start putting them in?
When I talked with Craig at the school district late last week, some of their installations were out all the way until October. So just seems like
But they have some that are installed already.
Yeah, they have a few that's installed
There are
already.
students that are receiving the service.
That's great.
Yeah, I think there's about 10, 15 that haven't installed, at least as of last week.
Yeah, none of that's bad stuff. It's all
Yeah,
good stuff.
yeah.
So thank you very much. I know it takes a lot of hoops to jump through, but yeah, we want to be sure these kids have, what they can to be successful.
Yep, we're moving forward.
Great,
KJ,
thank you.
I have a question for you on the previous plan for the CARES money that we had previously been allocated. The rental portion of it, I think that we were kind of on pause with that because we were waiting to see who was qualifying for other sources. Where are we at on that? Is that money still on pause?
Technically, it's still on pause. The state closed their window on August 28th, and then it told people you should know our decision within 3 weeks. That 3 weeks will end on the 18th of September. And I just met with Salvation Army today. We plan to reactivate our program next week.
Great, thank you for the
Yeah,
update.
we have to avoid duplication of benefits. So if they receive money from the state, they can't receive money from us. So,
For the same need, I'm assuming.
yeah, for the same need for rental assistance.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for KJ? Go ahead, Alderman Berg.
Yeah, we're trying to figure, well, I shouldn't say figure out, we're trying to learn who's gonna receive the assistance from IDA. And so one of the questions on the application for the Salvation Army is, have you received other assistance, and if so, from whom? So we can avoid that duplication. Oh, absolutely. If you can get the addresses and possibly the names, but at least the addresses, that would help us immensely. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Berg. Is there anything else for KJ? Thank you so much, KJ.
All
Thanks for the
right,
update.
We'll
This
be
is
back.
Great
Thank
stuff.
you.
The next informational is accounting and budgeting principles and policies update. Our finance director, Carol Barnes. Hi, Carol, we can see you, but we can't hear you. You're on mute. Can hear you now, Carol. We can, yes. Thumbs up. Are you looking for a motion on that, Carol?
Motion to make the IT budget 150,000 for the upcoming budget year in reserves.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Parker and a second by Alderman Potter. Is there any discussion on this item? Roll call, please, Janine.
Alderman Went. Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker. Waldron.
Aye.
Berg. Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Thank you, Carol. Go ahead. I'd entertain a motion. Alderman Nguyen?
What?
I'll make a motion.
There you go. We have a motion.
Second.
Is there a second? We have a second from Alderman Parker. So we have a motion from Alderman Nguyen and a second for Alderman Parker for us to consider. Is there any discussion on this? Alderman Nguyen? Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Roll call, please.
Alderman Nguyen. Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker. Waldron.
Your Honor, question for council.
Yes.
Dirk, I am a retiree health receiver. Should I be voting on this?
Carol, do we know, is it actually going to affect what the amount you pay?
No.
Yeah. Alderman Wall asked whether he should vote or not. The question being, does this affect him as someone who is formerly in the program? But it's not going to change what he pays, so he can vote.
Aye.
Alderman Berg. Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Yes, please. Thank you very much, Carol, for the information. Do any of the aldermen have any questions for Carol? Carol, I have a question. So it's an elaborate policy that has many facets to it. Are you okay waiting until October to establish those things, or do you need any formal approval of any other portion of the policy at this time in order to do the other work you're doing? Okay, so I just would be looking for if there's anyone that has any objection, or if Carol can continue to proceed with the assumption that ultimately these policies will be approved. Alderman Potter?
I'm just curious about the, did you call it a privilege tax? Is that what- We're basically going to rewrite the ordinance establishing the hotel motel tax, I assume, or basically modify it or whatever?
So we're going to tweak it. The question's about the hotel motel tax. So the legislature passed authority to, particularly relevant to non-home rule communities, the ability to put in an occupation tax known as a hotel motel tax. But those tax dollars had to be used for tourism. An occupation tax is one that's on the hotelier, the operator. So the home rule attorneys figured out, well, what we can do is move the tax over to be the obligation of the renter, the guest, and that's not an occupation tax, that's on the privilege of renting in our community, and then we can have it unencumbered. It's no longer an occupation tax, so therefore we can do that. The legislature then reacted to say, okay, but we're still going to restrict the non-home rule people from trying to do the same thing. So they passed that. And one of the things that your ordinance is set up to be a privilege tax. It actually says that. But in light of the back and forth at the legislature, we are going to just amend it just to make sure that we have every argument we can possibly make if anybody wanted to challenge it. And the way we're going to change it and tweak it is to say, if for some reason the payment by the renter, the guest, ultimately failed, like after they've stayed, they then contest on their credit card, I don't want to pay, it was fraud, there's something, and the 7% doesn't actually get paid, we're going to make it clear that because the obligation's on the renter, not the hotelier, that would be forgiven. So that's just one, it's a small thing, probably over-lawyered, but in these days, you know, we have enough sophisticated hoteliers now in Moline, I'm not going to take the chance. That's what that's.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I don't think anyone else has any concerns, Carol, so I think we're good, and we'll just wait until you're ready to bring back the formal policy. Thank you so much. We'll now move on to the next informational, which is administrator's update. Marty Plonick, City Administrator.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. Last week I was up here for a long time, so this week I'm going to keep it short. So I wanted to give you an update on this dark intersection policy. I said I'd have something back here at Council this week about, we're still working on it. Joe Cooler has done a really good job of doing some preliminary research, but I still have some questions, and so we're going to do a little bit more research and get back to you hopefully in the next week. She would also have received the overtime report, so unless there's any questions on that, I don't think I have anything else to report. I do want to mention the debris pickup program, and I think I've got JD here. You can come up and give a kind of an update on that. And the map that David just put up, this is the debris pickup progress as of today. So JD, if you want to get up here and kind of talk about where we're at, what we've been doing. And if you look at that, it looks like we're making great progress over the past week. So JD.
Yeah, I think we're on pace to do everything. When Marty and the mayor stopped down yesterday, we talked with Rod and our operations manager, Brandon, and I think we're still on track to try and move through and get through all the parts that haven't had that first pass through by the end of the week next week. Rod We talked quite a bit. There is some debris in the gutter lines and that. We've kind of got some concerns about that. So I think next week, if we're making the progress that we're making, we may try and staff a couple sweepers and try and get those out in conjunction with the rest of the crews picking up and get that debris that's in the gutter line. But we'll see, how our pace is to make sure that we can still stay on pace to have the entire community swept through by the end of the week.
Yeah, I want to express my gratitude for the visit yesterday. Brandon Panel was so incredibly helpful, and I really appreciate him sharing his expertise, because I think it helps us make good policy if we kind of understand the bits of it. But I did want to have you kind of talk about the contractor's role that Marty brought in, and also the help that we got through IEMA, how that's playing out in our effort.
Okay, so in the northeast quadrant there, when Kevin came in, we just decided the easiest way for him to mobilize his equipment, because he'd have to load it on a trailer and haul it and move it and that. So we let him kind of stage in one area close there to where he could leave his trailer in a lot and then work right there. And we got him a dump site, even though everybody, I think, had talked like they were full there at Perry Jacobs. Rod called down there, and they had an alternate spot that he could dump down there. So we got him a real close place to dump, so he could just kind of concentrate right in that one area and be as efficient as possible. So we've left him right there in that northeast corner, and he's done well there, picking up with that truck and that grapple that he's got on his 85G. So he's working in that area there today. He ended his 5th day. He can't come tomorrow. But if everything works out right, he said he'll be back to help us on Thursday, and then after that, but he's got a commitment tomorrow that he can't come. And then we reached out, and I talked to Alderman Waldron last week. I told Marty that I'd had a conversation with him, and through the Illinois Emergency Management Mutual Aid Network that we're all kind of a part of, we expressed our desire or need to get some assistance through that, and kind of filled out the paperwork and put it forward. And then we were notified last week that they were going to give us help. So that's the IDOT folks that came in, and I think their first mobilization might have been, my days are running together now, Thursday afternoon or Friday, I guess, when they came in. Whenever I sent you that picture that we had hauled all that brush down to Green Valley, that was the first day. I think that was Friday, Mayor. And that, so we got that down in there. We've been putting our crews with them, and they're working then over in the eastern side of town on the south quadrant, where we had a lot of heavy stuff kind of up there, 53rd, around 28th Avenue, 29th Avenue. There was some heavy concentrations there. So we've had them kind of concentrating and working up in there on that north side of Homewood. And but we've put some of our crews with them. So I know when we talked yesterday, I didn't give you that detail, but to help them navigate the city better, and that we decided to pair them up with a couple of our key people that know the city well and know all the dead-end alleys and all the locations, like Marty was talking about, how it's run into dead ends everywhere. So we wanted them to be able to be as efficient as possible. So we paired them up with some of our folks, and they're making hay.
How many, I don't want to describe them as crews, but how many trucks and loaders did IEMA bring in?
I think there's 2 loaders, 9 trucks total.
For IEMA?
For IDOT.
Wow, that's
So,
a
yeah.
lot, because I think that the Koopman quadrant is 1 truck and 1 excavator, is that correct?
1 truck and 1 loader.
And then the section that's to the left, that's 3 or 4 trucks?
It's probably, we've had 3 or 4 crews working over in there. It may be more trucks than that, though. We've got them, also, we're using some of the 1 tons, some of the 650s, some of the heavier trucks. We had to shuffle things around because some folks don't have CDLs that are helping, some do. So it's, but some of the trucks are smaller. But
Okay, I just want the council to kind of have an understanding, the community to have an understanding of what equipment's where.
Yep.
My other question for you, JD, is that after the first, I'm not sure how long it was, maybe the first 2 weeks, you discontinued taking it to Rainey's or Zylands and started piling it in the parks. What's the plan for those piles?
So Rod's in the other room, and he could probably give you kind of more of the actual details if you want to. But we'll probably bring in a tub grinder and grind that. He's gotten some quotes from folks that have that equipment as we get our concentration in there. But we'll probably help them maybe try where we can to cut that cost down, maybe do some of the loading or do some of the moving and that. But I think the tub grinding is going to be the most efficient way to get that handled and get it out of there. We can do some with our equipment, but not near as efficiently as a tub grinder.
When will that process begin?
But after we get through, and that's the one thing I guess I should quantify is that, you know, we haven't gone into the parks. We kind of haven't taken care of some of our properties. I know Marty and I talked about, I got a couple trees down there at Public Works in our lot that we'll take care of after we get the community cleaned up. So we got to do some of our own cleanup after that. But we'll be working on that, you know, in conjunction with it to try and clean up those parking lots.
Is the plan to move the shredded chips to another location? Is that
Yeah.
what your plan is?
Rod, some of the quotes that he got included, hauling that off too,
He's on his way in.
I think he's walking.
He's walking over, so he can talk to more of the specifics about what
I
he.
didn't know, maybe you guys
now?
had discussed it.
No, can't remember the pricing either, so he may have that by memory.
Just for all of our information, Rod, I think people are curious what's going to happen to those huge piles that have been piled up.
The intent will be for the contractor to remove them. So like, they won't do a fine grind on them. They'll do a very coarse grind on them. Most of the companies that do that have location or a vendor that takes that. For example, Midland has a energy producer, I believe, in the Pekin area that they take all of their chips to.
That's a lot of trucking, though. How much is that to haul it away?
I've got a price from them, and I don't recall it off the top of my head. I'll have to get that kind of going.
Alderman Parker?
Is there any way we could, and I don't know the difference between a coarse grind and a fine grind, but use those in our parks? I kind of drove through Stevens Park today and saw huge piles, in the parking lot there, which there's a lot of stuff. But I also saw kind of around the playgrounds, it looks pretty rough.
Yep.
And I'd hate to grind that, pay somebody to take it away and then have to buy some more to put underneath the swing sets.
Sure. So two things with that. One, the stuff that we put in the playgrounds has to be certified. So we're going to have to pay for that regardless of whether that's ground there on the site or whatever, because it has to be tested and meet the ASTM standards for playground safety surfacing. So that's that one. We can probably get some free for mulching around in landscape type areas, but there'd be plenty of that to be able to do that and grab some of that.
There'll be plenty, I missed that part.
There'll be plenty opportunity for us to grab a little bit for any sort of landscape type application that we would want to use.
Alderman Parker?
I should have backed up to begin with. You guys are doing a great job now.
Thank you.
I mean, I'm in all of the different cities driving around throughout the day, and I can't tell you how much, from my perspective, and I'm pretty critical of what we do. From my perspective, you guys are right on top of it now. It started off a little rough, I think, but you put some good fine tuning to it, and that map is unbelievable from where it was like a week ago. So
thank you. I'll be sure to pass that
congratulations
along.
to you and all your crews and everybody that's doing it, and our vendors and whoever's picking that stuff up. There's places in other cities that are main thoroughfares and sidewalks and routes to school. They're piled up 7-8 foot deep or high. And so thank you from my perspective and everybody in the second ward at least. You guys are doing a wonderful job. I should have started off with that as opposed to, hey, what are you doing with this? I didn't mean to jump on you there, but I did want to be sure and recognize what an outstanding job you guys are doing now. And I think the end date is September. That's just right around the corner. That's great.
Yeah, that's the goal day.
That's fantastic. Great job.
There is regarding those chips, because I am concerned to make sure that we have a plan for that. Because the community, I think it's much more stressful if you don't know what is happening. And so I want to make sure that we're thoughtful about that. But the city of Rock Island had hired our contractor, Midland, who does our recycling, to grind and haul truckloads. And so I got some information on that. It was $1,100 a truckload to haul it away. The alternative is to leave the chips though, and that's more like $400. And so by truckload, the Midland company said that that's about four of the same size truckloads get ground into one truckload. So it is more compressed, obviously, but one of the ideas that other communities are doing is allowing that that mulch that's ground up to be available to the community members that are in the neighborhood, so they can have that mulch. And they have found that there's been a significant demand for that. So I want to make sure that we're looking at all the alternatives, and if we can find a win-win in this, I think we should really pursue it.
We will certainly look into that.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'll work with Rod and JD to come up with a plan and come back to the council and see if we can't make that available for our residents.
And then just as, before we leave this topic, there was an article that was published, and this is for the community, there was an article that was published online last night that was inaccurate, that communicated that the city was expecting, I believe it was $140 pickup fee and arrangements to have their storm debris hauled away. That is not the case. We are cleaning up all of the storm debris. Now, if you don't have it out at the curb yet, then you're going to be on your own if you miss that cleanup, but there still is free cleanup. And by the map, if you are in an area that doesn't have red marks on the map and that map is available online, then you're still okay. They're still coming to get your stuff. If you are in a red mark area and you put stuff out, then you will probably need to conform to how we've routinely handled debris on our right of way. So.
Right.
Just so everybody knows, you're not getting charged, it's still free pickup.
Right, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, and then that's all I have for today.
Thank you, Marty.
Unless there's any questions.
Oh, does anyone have any questions for the administrative report? Alderman Parker?
I guess my question on the piggyback of this, once we get the debris picked up, we're going to start seeing leaves fall. Do we have a plan for what we're doing with that?
We do have a plan,
forthcoming?
and it's, we're, again, working with Rod and JD, and we'll be bringing that to you momentarily. Not today, but probably next week.
Great, thank you.
All right.
Yeah,
thank
we could have an update on that next week.
Yes,
We're getting
absolutely.
into that season. According to my visit with Brandon, he said that they like to have that launched, ready to go in mid-October. Needs to know what we're doing for that. Thank you very much. We're now moving to the next informational, which is the identification of our fourth quarter work session topics. And this discussion will be led by Janine.
Thank you, Your Honor. So I was just hoping to get some direction from council on fourth quarter work session topics and what was intended. So at the mayor's request, I did provide first the list of those council goals, the 2019-2021 council goals. The ones in red are the ones we have not yet had work sessions on, and I didn't know if we were ready to move into something like that or if you had other topics in mind. David, if you could go to the next one. The next one shows, and sorry, that's a little small, those different dates and the topics that we had. So we've had several work sessions, and we look specifically at council goals. And then we also had some others, specifically we looked at Main Street, Urban Land Institute, and I know that'll be coming back in 2021 when we talk again about the I-74 bridge right-of-way downtown land development plan. Then COVID-19, there was a special work session for that. So just wanted to see if you were ready to have some discussion and what your thoughts were on setting some topics for those last three. And you can see in red the three that we don't have any topics set for.
So Janine, my first recommendation is number 6. And we
Okay.
just talked about that, and that report will be coming out with the recommendations. So we need to drop that in there somewhere, and probably the November 17th would be the
Okay.
right spot for that. I don't know if they'll be ready by the 13th.
What is 6?
It's what we were just talking about. It's the, can you put the other?
With GovHR.
Service delivery.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, if you could go back, David, I'm sorry, to the last one where it shows number 6, review and evaluate alternative municipal service delivery approaches. So we'll put that in for November 17th?
Unless you guys think we should push them for the October.
November's
I
perfect.
don't know. So that would be my recommendation there. And the public schools, I mean, we had Rachel come and speak to us, which I thought was helpful. Alderman Potter?
I don't see it up there, but at one time, Marty had talked about working through some of our TIP districts and having a discussion about that. I wonder if that might be a valuable work session topic?
Yes, we call that Project Colossus. We're gathered all the data for all the TIF districts as a staff. We've looked at what we need to do next. The next step will be pulling that report together. So I wish I could tell you I know exactly when we'll have that all together, but we're working with Dirk's firm to help us make that analysis. So let me, next week or over the next week, I'll email the entire council, let you know when that'll be available.
I think that maybe that aligns with our number 4, because that is one of our most challenging tips.
That's kind of
Yes.
where I got the idea.
Yeah, so let's drop it in at the last one. of the year.
December
Let's look at the December one.
Yeah,
And
that's
so
fair, thank you.
that gives us a month from now, how do we want to invest our time? And if you look at this list, I'm not sure if it's with the school district, we've got some things going on with the digital equity and the mobile office that the police department is leading the effort on, that I think will be important, but I'm not sure if we have anything that would warrant a full work session on that. So I'd be open to revisiting some other area that we think is important for our policy setting.
Mayor?
Yes, Mark.
If I could, number 2, Neighborhood Stabilization Revitalization Plan. With the help of KJ and Jeff Anderson, we've re-energized what used to be called the Neighborhood Partnership Committee internally as a staff. And we want to come back to the council with a plan to multifaceted talk about that goal and how to achieve it. And with new people and new energy, I think we've got some ideas that we want to bring to the council and probably implement for 2021. So,
Will we be ready by the October 13th or something like that?
Our first meeting is September 21st, so.
Well, maybe we could just kind of talk about the concept, because it's really
Yeah.
just policy level. And I think we've got like our partnership with Moline CDC, the things that Brad
Yeah.
Hellman is doing, and then we've got Renew, especially with this disadvantaged business component, if we end up with that in our plan for the CARES Act. So
right,
there's a
and what we
couple other
talked about
things.
is how that all fits together and how
Uh-huh.
we monitor that
Okay.
and how we internalize that so that we can make it a constant push and goal for the community.
Right.
So
So
I
I
will
would-
bring that plan to you.
Yeah, let's put that in on the October, and then we'll maybe offer up a little bit of flexibility.
Yep.
If we have the delivery services ready, instead, we'll bring that forward, and so we can play those back and
Okay.
forth. But for now, we'll pursue the neighborhood stabilization for October. Is everybody okay with that? Do we have any concerns from the gallery?
I had one more comment.
Yes.
Mayor. David, if you don't mind moving to the next one again. I just wanted to note, talking with Carol about the budget session, that first session is October 24th, that's a Saturday. Initially, Mayor, we talked about doing that in the COW, but I think we're back to doing it in the library because now that we've had the pandemic, we think we need to social distance. It wasn't an issue when we first talked about this. Are you okay with it being in the library?
When you're saying to be in the library?
We were going to do it up at the library because they've got those 3 big meeting rooms we can open up and then we can social distance more. Are you thinking it'll be
Oh.
October 24th? We could talk about that later, but Carol had noted that we've got the October 24th. We may then move on and do some more October 27th, which is a regular meeting. And if needed, we might add November 3rd, which right now is not a meeting. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I didn't know if you wanted to trade that date if we get to that point. I just wanted you to be aware that that was discussed.
I appreciate that. Let's wait until we're in that world. We've got, it's a month, and who knows what a month's gonna be. I'm not sure if everybody is gonna wanna come in person, even if we are social distancing. So
Right.
I just don't have a feel right now, so if we could hold
Okay.
off on that decision, but recognize that it is a decision we'll have to make. Oh, no, Dirk says no.
As the chief correctly, eagle ears observation reminded me, you're not going to have a meeting on November 3rd. Governments are supposed to be closed for the election.
On where?
November 3rd?
Oh, yeah,
Oh.
you're right, we're not.
There you go. Well, we'll merge it in somewhere if we
Okay.
need it. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now we are going into our agenda items. The first item, item number 1, is the Moline Community Development Art Installation Licensing Agreement. Dirk Price.
So thank you, Mayor. Quickly, this is an agreement made necessary by our polarized society at the moment. The good news is that the MCDC got a grant as part of the streetscape beautification project in the Floreciente neighborhood. And the reason we scooted this forward and are pressing to get it considered is because we'd like it to take advantage of Hispanic Heritage Month. The program is that with the grant, they've commissioned an artist who will commission other artists to actually do the work, paint these flower holders, their containers. Pot's not really a good word for them, doesn't really convey how big they are. But the idea is to decorate them and paint them. The issue is that they're city property, and if we just said, Alderman Waldron, you can go paint on it, now we're allowing someone to turn those into a public forum, and now everybody gets to paint on them, whatever their message is, and we would lose control of the content. And so to prevent that, we're going to take advantage of a thing known as the government speech doctrine that says it's our speech. So we are going to control the content on there by entering into this partnership agreement, which is before you, with MCDC, where we get approval of the concept. We don't have to sign off on the particular specialized design, but the concept, so that it is our speech, and then it's not all comers are welcome. We get to control what is on our flower planters and still meet the deadlines for Hispanic Heritage Month, this grant that was given to beautify this part of the thing and make everybody happy in Floreciente. So that's why it's before you, and that's why we've asked to move forward.
Did you all see the image of the pots? Can you bring it up? Do you know how to get to it? It's, if you do the bookmarks.
While Dave's doing that,
This is not the full agenda, this is appreciation.
Oh, well, never mind then. They're
We
very
could get to it
colorful.
from the website. If we wanted to pull up the agenda from the website, we could.
Can I share? Oh, I don't know if I'm on the WebEx though.
well, while you're looking at, I would just want to say thank you to Jeff and KJ who moved at lightning speed to make this happen in Hispanic Heritage Month.
They look cool.
Yeah,
All right,
motion,
so we're looking for a motion?
yeah, motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Moyer, a second by Alderman Williams. Is there any comment on this agreement? Roll call, please.
Alderman Went. Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker. Waldron.
Aye.
Berg. Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Thank you. The next item will be presented by Chief Galt, Police Officer Hiring.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good evening, Council. Council Resolution 1051-2020 temporarily modified the Personnel Code back on April 14, 2020, to place a moratorium on hiring of new personnel without the consent of City Council. So tonight I'm coming before you to request an exception to the hiring moratorium and authorize Human Resources to hire 2 police officers for the November Police Academy and 3 police officers for the January Police Academy. For background, the Moline Police Department has an authorized strength of 81 sworn police officers. 81 is kind of our sweet spot also, so that we can maintain staffing operations and minimum staffing. And if you recall, back in the fall of 2019, I came before you and asked if you would allow me to exceed our authorized strength and actually go over 81 and hire 2 extra police officers to prepare for some upcoming retirements. And if you remember at that time, I also told you about how it takes 7 months of training to get a new officer on the street to count as actual manpower. And so through retirements, we've fallen back to 81 officers by July of this year, and an additional officer retired in August, and then another officer resigned for federal employment in September, bringing us to a current staffing level of 79. So I've secured 2 police academy slots that are available for us if you approve that, and they would begin November 19th at the police academy, right about a week before that here with city employment. Last Tuesday, the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners certified a new eligibility list of 14 officers, and recruiting is not as easy today as it was 20 years ago, and finding candidates is very challenging. And of course, Moline and me as the leader, we want our top quality candidates to come to work for our city and our police department. And I think that our new list has some exceptional candidates on it. However, that list also has candidates that have tested for multiple police departments to achieve their dream of becoming a police officer. So it'll be my goal to get those best candidates by hiring our top preferences as soon as we can and get at least 2 into the next class in November. So I mentioned needing more officers in January. Well, we have an officer who's expected to leave for another law enforcement job in the West at the end of October, bringing us down to 78. And we have another officer expected to retire around January 6th of 2021 with 28 years of service, and another officer around January 7th, 2021 with 30 years of service. That would bring us down to 76 officers. Additionally, looking at forecasting ahead into 2021, I expect 2 more officers to retire in March and another in May, bringing me down all the way to 73 officers. Well, why do I'm telling you about all this that's off in the distance? Well, because the 2 officers that I'm asking you to hire, if they would start in November, they actually wouldn't be operational as manpower until mid-June of 2021. So you see where we would be at that point. So the officers hired in January won't be ready until August. There is a significant salary reduction from the senior officers that are retiring from 20 to 30 years in the new officer salary. So 3 out of the 5 officers do realize a salary savings or reduction, I guess is probably a better term. We also have some salary savings or reduction from the vacancies that we've maintained as open from July to November and then August to November as well. So staff recommends the City Council pass a resolution authorizing exception to Resolution 1051-2020 for hiring of police officers.
Motion approved.
We have a motion by Alderman Parker and a second by Alderman Berg, and I think that's a great strategy, Chief Galt. I like the way you're thinking, and I think it's really important for us to make sure that we're getting the very best candidates that we can. So thank you for bringing it forward. Does anyone else have any comments or concerns? Alderman Moyer.
Just curious, if some of our officers are actually leaving for other positions, is it possible to recruit talent from elsewhere to Moline as well?
Well, sure, yes, there is. And I think maybe you're talking about like a lateral program of already certified officers. So that would require some negotiation probably with a lateral program with the union. There is a mechanism in state statute that we're talking about with Ansel Glink and the labor attorneys about adding that and maybe a second list that's authorized by statute. And so that might come forward in the future years. So our test certification for lists in the city of Moline lasts 1 year. So we can reevaluate that as we move forward.
And I think, Alderman Moyer, I'm not an expert on this, but my understanding from our commissioners is that some of the candidates on the list could have previous police experience. So it's not like, everybody on that list doesn't have experience. I don't think any of the first 5 do that.
I don't believe any of the current and the 14 that we have for this do have certified experience.
But they do sometimes come in that way. Alderman Williams?
Chief Galt, if we take 5 off that 14 and other departments that are losing people take 5 or 6, we could exhaust that 14 pretty quickly.
Very quickly. I would anticipate that we'll be retesting in the first part of the spring.
Okay, that's what I was curious.
Does anybody else have any questions or concerns? Roll call, please.
Alderman Nguyen? Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker? Waldron?
Aye.
Berg? Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief. The next item is One Way 32nd Avenue. Joe Kuhlenbeck.
Thank you, Your Honor, Council. In fall of 2019, 32nd Avenue on 7th Street near Hamilton School, we were requested to put a temporary one-way heading west on 32nd Avenue in an effort to relieve traffic during school drop-off and pickup hours up there at the school. With their model, they saw an increase in traffic and congestion. That was requested by the police department. We put those up. Staff really recognized the advantages to doing that, and in order for it to be a permanent change, we needed to bring to you as an ordinance change. So staff is recommending approval to make that a permanent one-way during school pickup and drop-off hours.
Motion to approve?
Second?
We have a motion by Alderman Parker, a second by Alderman Moyer. Are there any questions? Alderman Nguyen.
I don't know if we've had much response.
Chief might.
Chief.
Yeah, thank you, Joe.
So that's a good question. We did have some complaints at the beginning of about August. I think a couple of the aldermen forwarded and dealt with. I know Alderman Parker and I dealt with an unhappy resident. I have not heard anything more since that time. I can tell you, as you know, that intersection was very problematic ever since really Hamilton School was remodeled and added, went from 180 students to 600. So we had some significant problems there. It was really one of the only options that we could find. There was some other complaints that maybe we didn't do the one-way going east along there, and we said that we would reevaluate that as the school continued on. Obviously, it relieved itself, and that first month of traffic in school is always the worst, as parents get used to the new patterns, new schools, moving in and out. So it calmed down. We got that traffic. I think it was relieved. We did some studies. I think I might have reported that some of those times back, or maybe individually to you. They slowly got better. And I'm not aware of any problems at all post, say, Thanksgiving. I didn't hear any. And of course, right now with the reductions in problems.
Alderman Parker.
And I would agree with the chief. I would be the one to hear probably, or Alderman Berg. And other than, initially the shock of having to do something different, once they kind of got over that, I think that it's been pretty well accepted. At least either that, or they came to the conclusion that if they talked to me, they weren't going to get what they wanted anyway. One of the two.
Yeah,
So.
I think one of the major problems there, we switched the parking from one side to the other, which made people face so they could get out. And there's some people got down into some of the side streets. I think once people got used to the newness of the pattern, they figured it out. Like, what would, okay, today it took me longer in this area, maybe I'll go a block over. And so we, from my experience in 2 different cities, that's not uncommon.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, Alderman Nguyen? Thank you. I don't think we have any other comments. We'll go to roll call, please.
Alderman Nguyen. Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker. Waldron.
Aye.
Berg. Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Item number 4 is also Joe's. It's the 12th Avenue loading zones.
Okay, thank you. This one is going to kind of piggyback on our last topic and kind of touch on what Alderman Wint had just discussed. We did our road diet on 12th Avenue from East Moline border to 41st Street, and we had a lot of positive feedback. We had some people that were concerned about it. Obviously, it's change in traffic, people get concerned. But one of the concerns that was brought to us, and it's been brought to us, was traffic during school hours. Again, that street stacked up with 4 lanes of traffic. There was a right lane, and the traffic would stack up there before they went into the school. It allowed through traffic to continue in the center lane, so to speak. With the road diet, we have a turn lane and 2 through traffic. So the concern was traffic backing up, stopping traffic completely, not allowing through traffic to get through during loading times. We looked at several different options, ways to alleviate, ways to help that traffic flow before it became an issue. We're fortunate with COVID and reduced schools right now that it's not been an issue yet. But what staff had come up with is to widen the lane on the school side of 12th Avenue, make it 7 feet, which is wide enough to park a car. And with that and some signage, we can have loading zones in that bike lane during school pickup and drop-off times. So we'll have to put signage up to alert bicyclists and pedestrians that use that lane that during school pickup times, it's going to be used as a loading parking zone as well. We'll be able to stack traffic up on 12th Avenue and alleviate some of the school time traffic on that road diet on 12th Avenue. So what we proposed is to restripe that section of 12th Avenue, bring our stripers back and get it to where we can utilize that as a parking loading zone during school times. Staff is looking for a motion to recommend and allow staff to continue with that plan.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Alderman Waldron, is there a second? Second by Alderman Moyer. For discussion, Alderman Nguyen.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I think it'll be determined as we get the approval to do. We'll mimic probably what we've done on other near schools, whether there's one-ways during loading zones. We'll do the same type of a signage for those, and we'll have Dirk take a look at our signage and make sure that what we have and what we plan to do, it states what is necessary.
Thank you. Alderman Potter.
Yeah, I was noticing on the action report, it says the afternoon hours would be from 1 to 3:30. That seems like a pretty long window. I'm assuming we don't need that much time.
Typically not. Yeah, I'm not sure. I really don't know the answer to that. Like I said, I'd have to look into and nail down what the sign is going to say. We will do similar to what we've done in other school zones. I don't know if those are 1 to 3:30 and those one-ways near schools. I know we have several of those, but we would do something to stay consistent.
To answer Alderman Potter's question a little bit, we do have something called the grandparent effect. And if you're talking about the front half, the 1 o'clock half, they will get there early so they can get a primary spot. So on the backside, school normally gets out at 3, so that's not that big a deal. But that front side is probably the more problematic. But I've gone and picked up the granddaughters, and I've arrived at 2, and I've been 12th in line. And
We probably do have to be kind of clever about the signage because they have early out as well.
Right.
And so how do you navigate all that? So we'll just have to think it through and kind of get a sense of what they're doing. Maybe it's monitoring at this time to see.
We'll really look to be consistent with our other signage around other schools.
One thing is it'll be obvious because there'll be a car parked in front of the parking, or the bike lane, right? Alderman Parker.
Yeah, so one of the things we experienced at Hamilton when we went through this change was people lost their minds a little bit. And so I'm hoping that the chief will deploy some people up there when we go in, when this is a new thing, to kind of teach people what to do. Because, when we did this, going backwards to it, that temporary one-way thing, there was a lot going on. And I think Officer Pickens was up there and did a great job in trying to educate people on how to navigate through that.
Yeah, I would agree with you that we do have motorists struggle with change. And so I would agree with you. One thing I would remind you, we do have a school resource officer that is assigned to Wilson.
Sure.
And that might be something as simple as just having school assist us with the crosswalk and move him down for that first part. And, we'll make those adjustments as needed, put the traffic unit up there or whatever.
As long as we're thinking ahead on this, because we know it's gonna be a problem.
Yeah.
Alderman Nguyen? I don't think that window is disclosed in the recommendation, is it? So.
It is not.
Yeah, I don't think it's a window, but
No, and I'll look, I'll verify other school zones. Like I said, we do want that consistency. And we can report back and come up with a game plan that we think we're all comfortable with.
thanks, Joe. Is there any other discussion on this one? Roll call, please.
Alderman Nguyen. Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker. Waldron.
Aye.
Berg. Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. We do not have an other this evening, and so we're going to move right into our work session. Capital Improvement Plan. J.D. Schulte, Director of Public Works, will be presenting.
Thank you, Your Honor. Okay, so for Alderman Berg, I had a friend of mine give me this paper mask, and I'm hoping I'm easier to understand. I know that I have a hard time with you understanding me when I was talking through that cloth mask, so I hope this is better. And for Alderman Schoonmaker, when Marty came down today, we went through the presentation and that and got the okay to send this out to you. I had one of our staff members time me to make sure that I would be concise and move this along so this doesn't linger on, and I knew Alderman Schoonmaker would appreciate that. So David's helping me here. There we go. What I want to do is I'm going to kick this off by talking about a few things. Tonight, since we're doing a work session, Your Honor, we are going to kind of take a little bit deeper dive into some of this than I think in the past. You've gotten more of a presentation, I think, as the CIP kind of came to you at that first glance. And so I've got Tony here with me tonight. We've got our construction manager dialed in and connected remotely, as well as our civil engineer. And then Joe Kuhlenbeck's here with us. And Joe, is filling in as our lead in the engineering division right now in the interim capacity. So they're going to be here and kind of speak down to a deeper dive into some of the matrices and the different components and the drivers that score the different prioritization of the projects that come forward and assemble this CIP. So that way we can answer questions and be, I guess, a little bit more of a comprehensive overview of the different projects. What you're going to see on this list that we're going to walk through tonight are the list of projects that hit that prioritization scoring for 2021 to kind of come through with the information we got from the revenue manager and then the finance director on what they anticipate our revenues are going to be for 2021 and the different categories and that for the projects that line up with the use of those funds. Additionally, we sent out, this is a list that we've been working through, and Marty and I had gone through and actually looked physically at these sites earlier in the year, and we thought it would be good to share with you the 7 different federal funded projects that we've got. They're going to be coming up over the next probably 3 years. And these are grant funded projects that have already been awarded. And additionally, there are 2 project sites on there for some grants that we've got out that we've had different indicators that think that we're going to be, I think we've got high scoring applications on that, and those are on there as well. And so we can touch on those and answer any questions you might have on those as well. And I know they were going to send some information out to you ahead of time on those. Real quick, I know this is one of the things that we haven't done a deep dive on, and I'm going to do this real quick before I turn it over to Joe, is the IT folks have given us, on the front page, I think they call these, David, I think you call these our carousels, if I remember right. And we still have the Onward Moline is on this carousel on the front. And this is our, If you remember, the mayor and I launched this in 2018 on the, at the State of the City. Whoops, I always do that. Okay, so let me zoom this in. But this is our, I would call this a transparency tool that we have that's out here. Any one of our construction projects, if you remember, that are in the CIP, then you just click on the project with the little, loader, the excavator on there. It gives you an explanation of what the project is, and then you click on it, and it'll bring you up the construction limits of the project. As we go through the year on this, our REs, our engineering techs that are out on the job are taking pictures of the jobs, as it goes along. When we first do the projects, obviously after you folks approve the CIP, I think you remember that we put them out here. Sometimes they'll say, the timeline, the contractor, it'll say TBD, and that. And then as we move it forward and give it bid documents and everything, then we put the funding sources out here, the contacts for construction management, who the engineering tech is, or the RE on the job. And so every project that we've had in this year's out here, when Marty got a chance to look at it with us, he had some good suggestions that we're going to put a status segment in here. So as we go through this and we're moving forward, if it's 70% done or whatever, then we'll move that status segment in there. And so it'll be a little bit more timely, I guess. With that, David, I can't remember how you wanted me to sweep back out of this. Okay, he's going to take it from there. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Joe, and he's going to talk through the first portion of these projects.
Okay, thank you. I guess tonight we're going to get into a initial deep dive on our 2021 CIP planning. This is something a couple months ago I brought to you guys some ideas for utilizing funds, just using those under different types of projects. Can't use them for maintenance, things like that. And as we move through this budget year, and we get a sense of where we're going to be and what funds we're going to have, and really what I'm looking for and our staff is looking for is direction from you. We want input from our leadership and council to help us guide us in what's important to your citizens and your constituents, and we want some input on our CIP for this year. So we're ready to move this forward with some feedback that we get from you tonight, and but I want to get a good head start into it and kind of explain what we have going. So that's what I'm looking to get tonight. How do I move forward here?
Have a wand in there.
I did send out a packet, and I brought some printed copies today. So what you have in front of you is the CIP budget right here. You also have a list of construction projects that utilize grant funding that we've applied for and either been approved for or anticipate getting approved for, and a map of those projects as well. But this is the quick overview of what our revenues are going to look like for next year. We have our year-end balances up top through CIP, utility tax, MFT, and Rebuild Illinois, and then anticipated revenues for the 2021 fiscal year.
I have a question on the revenue, Your Honor.
Oh, Alderman Waldron?
Joe, on sidewalk 7525 program, I see we're hoping to get 20,000 in revenue. How are we doing this year? Is the program going well? Are we getting revenue into the 20,000? Are people not doing?
So this year we didn't have a sidewalk program. We didn't put it out for bid. It was one that was tabled during our COVID months, I suppose. So we didn't have a sidewalk program. The program is backed up.
Is the 20,000 the traditional number that we put for revenue?
Yeah. So our program is 100% city, 0% for the community. We take the revenue. If they offer to agree to pay the 25%, they move up in a priority list.
Okay.
Is basically how that works. So it's a target that we try to hit, but it can go up or down depending on.
I thought the 20,000 was for the property owners that didn't want to build their sidewalk, and so they put it into the fund. That's not what that is?
No.
Okay. That's just the matching, or their portion of it.
Cracks, trippers,
Correct.
stuff of that nature.
Got it.
Yep, so we still anticipate getting 20,000 on that. If we get to 10 and nobody wants to pay, then we go down through the list in order.
Alderman Parker?
So you've just mentioned something which I used to talk to Scott Hinton about on a somewhat regular basis, the cracks or the trippers. And he indicated we had one of these. Do we have a grinding machine? So when we do have a tripper, instead of pulling out a whole huge section of sidewalk and repouring it, we can go grind that so at least it's smooth and does not become a tripper?
Our contractors would have a grinder.
But Scott
for
said we
sure.
had one down at Public Works.
I don't know if we have a grinder. We do?
Do we use it?
We've used it on occasion, you know, when we go out and do areas like that. Yeah, I can't tell you the last exact address that we've used it on, but I don't think it's been, I don't know and no staff to use it this year, but we've had it out, I know, last year. And I'll get you an address where you can.
So I'm guessing it'd be a great way to save some money on and make the I would think older neighborhoods that have had sidewalks there for 80 years and have trees growing up through them a lot more walkable and safe. But we could use it anywhere. I just like to use it. I don't to have a big piece of machinery or whatever size it is just sitting there and we haven't used it doesn't. And then we talk about pouring new sidewalk. I'd like to fix the stuff we have.
Understood. Yep, we haven't, I know we haven't staffed it this year, but we have had, I'll get you some sites where we used it last year so you can see it. It's
Yeah, no, that'd be great. I'd like to take a look and see how it works out. I've seen in other communities where they use it, and that's what was the genesis of this conversation with him. And he's like, oh yeah, we got one of those, but you know, we don't use it much. And I'm like, let's use it. Let's try to fix instead of rebuild everything when we can.
We've got, if you want to, I guess not to filibuster Joe's time, but if you go out and look at the 34th Street project, we did that, you know, we did some of those sidewalks on there, but we only replaced a section of sidewalk on 34th Street that need to be replaced, and we mud jacked the others, and I think that was a nice combination solution to do the more cost-effective approach there.
Great. Sorry, John. I didn't mean to jump on you. Just
Nope.
Alderman Waldron reminded me of a tripper, and I'm like, hey, I haven't talked about that for 6 months. So.
Absolutely, and if it, you know, some of them are too big to grind, but yeah, a lot of them we probably can, and yeah, absolutely.
That'd be
we'll
great.
look into
I
it.
think that'd be a great program.
Sure.
To go around any neighborhood and just find. I guarantee you, down any of our streets in Alderman Williams' ward and mine, you're going to find trippers.
Yeah, we have plenty of sidewalk to work
Yep.
on for sure. So here's an overview.
Yeah, Alderman Went?
I don't know how many of the people on our list are paid 25%. Without overshooting that number and increasing the amount for sidewalks, because we do have a significant list, we can certainly move that number from 20 to a number you guys are all comfortable with, but instead of we just kind of went historically of what we've had in the past, and 20,000 seemed to be a good number. Yeah, we would look into it, and it may come from a list of people who say they will commit to paying the 25%, and we're going to get close to that 20, and then after that, people are just going to wait their turn to get it replaced 100%. So yeah, we'll look into that and get a better number for sure, depending on what parameters we're looking at on those.
Good, thank you.
Okay, here's an overview of our revenues. Just kind of a 2020 adopted revenue versus a projected 2021, just to get an idea of where we feel like we're going to be with our COVID 2021 budget, or with the effects of COVID on it. We are anticipating a total of a $1.1 million reduction from our home rule sales tax and utility tax revenue for our 2021 budget year. Just wanted to give you guys that statistic.
Yes, Alderman Nguyen?
Yeah, these were numbers given to us by Carol for those anticipated revenues, and we plugged them in and just wanted to show the difference. I will let Tony Lodi talk about water, WPC, the utility. He'll be up in a little bit. He might be able to answer that question more specifically.
I just had a quick question. As I look at this total budget number, it looks like the total revenue is projected to be just under $12 million, and that the net available cash reserves are $4,757,000. Is that correct? So the total amount for this budget year would be closer to 16?
16, so you...
16 million, or 15, 6.
Yeah, with our reserves plus our revenue. Yes, correct.
So like these lines on the total revenue, if you were to bring it across, it's actually closer to 16. I'm just trying to figure out.
Correct. So at the bottom, we have a projected January 21 fund balance of 4.7 million, revenues of 11,900,000, and our 2021 spending, which is low now. We don't have all of our jobs in here. Like I said, we're looking to get feedback, which direction we want to go with some of our options. But yeah, so we would have our fund balance plus our revenues as a total operating budget for this year, available budget.
Yeah, Alderman Nguyen?
Sure. Yeah, and we want to get those in there. Like I said, this is a jumping off point for us with you. We want to make sure that we're just going in the direction that you see us needing to go to. With the different funds and the my ability to spend utility funds, we really concentrated on available projects for road and for surface construction in this one. Now, Tony does have some projects that he's going to talk to you about that he wants to do with utility funds. But yeah, I mean, and as the CIP process, this is my first year, obviously, and I know Hinton was up here and he did it his way with you guys for many years, and I don't know which way is right. I really want the input. I really feel like I'm going to be able to produce a budget and projects that are going to be the best for the city, for whatever it is, whether it's development, whether it's moving forward, whether it's one of those 6 council goals you guys have. Without your input, I'm going to miss on those. So I'm looking for that from you guys going forward. And this is just a jumping point. We have 6 weeks to get this ready. And if you said next week I want these jobs on here and I want these on here, we'll have it ready for you. So really kind of looking for the input on this. And as far as those fund balances go, I know we have some changes in our fund balance policies and all that. So all that stuff I'm sure is going to play a role and how it gets presented at a final for you.
Joe, something that might help us is the criteria of, from your professional perspective of what are the right roads to invest in, because if you were to leave it to us, we're gonna pick the roads that have the biggest potholes and are the hardest to drive on, and those may not necessarily be the best investment, because we may be able to do some pre-work on some other roads that'll be a bigger impact for our dollar. And so I think that's something that would help guide us, is like what you put on here, especially regarding the roads, is why did they make it? What was your philosophy on making it? And then I have a question for you on the rebuild money. So I can see here that we have the 900,000 that we've accumulated already. We don't have another batch coming in before the end of the year.
I don't believe so. We'll get supposed to get 2 payments annually. We've received 2 this year already. We don't know when we'll get the other 2 for next year.
But we know we're gonna get it, right? And so is that another
I haven't heard
million?
anything that we won't. Yeah, it will come.
Is that incorporated in our
Yes.
revenue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And to answer your first question, Mayor, I'll show you how we come up and how we come up with roads
Okay.
in a few slides.
Alderman Witt? Did you?
Correct. We have 955,234 in fund balance ending year 2020, and we anticipate another 955,234 fiscal year 2021. Yep. And back to your question, Mayor, is how do we come up with projects? From an engineering standpoint, we look at our infrastructure, our roads, from a maintenance aspect. Marty has really changed us to look at them from an economic development aspect as well. And again, I've read through more planning plans and policies this week than I think I ever had. It's just trying to get my head around. And there's some really, really cool things that have been proposed. And from 2001 to current, there's a lot of neat stuff in there. If we don't know that and we're not pushing that direction, we're not helped to say this is going to help us get to that point. We're going to, like I said, we're throwing darts. And now we're throwing darts specifically because of criteria that we pick. Now this is going to go over some of that. Okay, we look at utility needs. We look at a pavement condition index. You've heard us talk about that. We have 2 engineering techs, the same ones, go out every year to look at our roads, look at our alleys. The reason we send the same person is it's subjective. So we want the same guys out there looking at them. They evaluate about every 3 years. They make it through the city. So within 3 years, we've been back to every road, every alleyway that we have, and they rate them. And so we have a GIS layer that kind of gives us, it's color coded. If it's red, it's bad. If it's green, we just did it. So we use that a lot. We also take into consideration number of homes and businesses that are affected, proximity to schools, sidewalk infill locations, bike path usability, looking at the complete streets and multi-modes of transportation, safety factors, and then, just traffic counts on those roads. So we do look at all those and we weight them. Here's kind of some of our factors that are weighted. The pavement condition gives us, we score points for each of these projects within the segments. Again, we look at our utilities, whether it's water, WPC, storm. If they're red water locations, they get additional points and scores for those needs as they arise. We also add in these systematic factors and customer factors. Again, they relate more to proximity to the existing projects we have on, whether they're part of future developments, what type of street they are, proximities to the schools and businesses, and then also how many people they impact. The same street on a dead end isn't going to score as well as the same street on a road that connects between other thoroughfares. So we take all those into a consideration, and we come up with a priority matrix. Now here's a matrix for our reconstructions. These are roads that will need reconstructed for us. A lot of them are seal coat roads. They need all those things. So those are kind of obvious. but there are others in here that have PCI ratings of anywhere from 40 down to 0. So these roads we've identified as possible projects. Again, which ones are important to you may not be as important to us, you know. So if we have a CIP committee, which we're hoping is going to involve public works staff, planning staff, administration staff, and probably some council input, you know, if there's a person or two that would like to be involved in helping us identify what projects can help not only make the road drivable, but push those other 6 council objectives forward. So this list is available for you. This is a resurfacing matrix. What we've done in the past is we picked quadrants of the city to resurface in. When we bid our resurfacing jobs, if we keep our contractor in the same vicinity without moving them all over town, we get better prices. We don't have to pay for mobility of that contractor to go from northwest to southwest corners and things like that. So we pick roads within that quadrant. And again, we go through, we look at our matrix, and we identify areas that are close to each other, that connect, that make sense logistically and from an engineering aspect. And that's how we come to you for final CIP approval. These are the tools we've used to identify what's most important for us from a maintenance standpoint, from an engineering standpoint.
On this list, Joe, if you go back, why are the top ones in red? What are you indicating?
I think they're highlighted because those are close in proximity, and those are ones we're leaning towards prioritizing on a CIP.
Oh, but they aren't on this list.
We have a base budget number on this CIP right now. So on this spreadsheet that you have in front of you is a starting point for our CIP 2021. If we take these 3 sites, we'll price them out and we'll plug that number in.
Where would they fit on this? Are they on the
would
roadway
be
projects?
on, yep, 2021 asphalt resurfacing. Under roadway projects, the second subtext
I
line
see.
item there.
Joe, to alleviate some confusion, you ought to put up their asphalt resurfacing on your
Okay, yeah,
legend
sure.
on top.
Right.
So your intention is to invest a little over $1 million in these 3 projects? Is that?
Initially, and we may be able to get a 4th one out of that until we get up there and get our hard measurements. Yeah, I mean, at the same time, if we want to spend $3 million to resurface and really get into this quadrant and do some more things, you know, those are all things that we have capability of depending on our funding. But this is how we pick our tools.
And so I'm just trying to figure out the money of it. $1 million will get 3 blocks on one street, 3 blocks on another street, and then I don't understand the length of the 11th Avenue C. Is that just a 1 block?
I'm not really sure
The top one.
how long that street is.
Is that normal for?
I think we did
thing?
3 sites this year, and we had a similar budget line item.
The linear.
Yeah.
Alderman Potter, did you have a question?
And I'm assuming some of those resurfacing projects, we're actually talking about some, the pavement underneath the pipe somewhat.
Yeah. Depending on the location, yeah, there's going to be some base work to every resurfacing project. Rarely do you get to just mill it down and lay over top. There's a lot of, you know, you're going to find some soft spots and spots that need base work. I mean, it's not an exact science, but our guys know pretty well where they're going to need to do some things. Our quantities come in fairly close, but yeah, there's definitely some work below.
Were you, if I could have a follow-up here, were you looking to add some of these future projects here under the rebuild to next year's program, or do you think that's too aggressive, or?
You know, again, we're going to look, we got a lot of information for everybody here to kind of look at. We're going to go back and continue our discussions based on the feedback we get, and spend these fund balances down to a level that you guys are all comfortable with. You know, we have extra money in MFT, we have extra money in rebuild still. If you guys want to plan to spend all that money this year, we'll go back. We have plenty of projects to bring forth. But if you guys want to leave some of that in reserves for larger projects down the road, this is where that CIP planning, and I agree, we need a specific long-term CIP plan. I mean, and I'm excited to get that. I'm excited to incorporate some of the plans that I've read this week, you know, and really leverage the money we do have for more money. You know, there's a lot of opportunities for grants, a lot of federal, state money that if we're ready and we're prepared and we're aligned with those grant objectives, we're in pretty good shape. So, like again, that committee. That committee is going to take some pressure off me. Let me put it that way. We got a $16 million operating budget here on street projects that, yeah, we can definitely fill that money. We can definitely spend it. But if I got people behind me and I got decision makers that are helping us come to that conclusion that this is best, I have the most confidence in our ability to deliver what's important for the city of Moline if that's the case. So that's where I'm going to go with this.
Joe, are we on track to spend the entire 2020 budget?
No, we should have. No, we will have 1.7 million fund balance for CIP and 2.2 million MFT fund balance. Some of that MFT was
unspent 2020 money. I know that there's some that is going to be unspent because it was overestimated.
Some of it was
I know there's something there.
Yes.
Is that incorporated in this?
Yes, it's
Is it?
incorporated. Yeah, the unspent money is the year-end balance money.
It's in the 4.7. Well, it'd be additional, I think. It wasn't like we were spending it down to zero.
We're not. And we also had in our 2020 CIP budget some projects that didn't complete. The I-74 $600,000 final payment for Ford did not come through. So we had to push that back to, I think it was the 600,000. And then there's the John Deere Road has two payments left that is our match that have not come through yet, that won't come through in 2021 or 2020. We'll have to pay those in 2021. So they were budgeted, not spent, and that's one of the reasons that MFT's inflated 800 and some thousand is we anticipated spending it, but the projects didn't complete and we didn't get final billing for it.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I think we do have lots of questions, though, how much money we have to work with. I think we do have a lot of questions about how much money we have to work with. We need a better understanding of that
Sure.
from the council perspective before we.
Yeah, and I got these numbers from Carol as, you know, as she reconciles, and I assume she's given me the year-end balance of available MFT, available CIP, available utility tax money.
Great, thank you. Alderman Went?
We have several. We have a lot that are close or that we started on. We have several that are ready, and if we can get some direction in the next few weeks, we can have projects ready that we haven't started on. So we have plenty of. We still have plenty of time to get projects for 2021 spring bidding, get them designed, get them bid, get them constructed. We just, again, once we get our budgets and we get this CIP dialed in, we'll be ready. Yeah, 19th Avenue would be a very high priority for us. It's a $3 million asphalt resurfacing project. Again, we could have that one ready even if we wanted to. We do know that that's a good project available for STP funding, grant funding, which it's been a few years, I think, since that's been led. We're anticipating maybe that coming out and being prepared to get some money to assist with that. Absolutely, 19th Avenue is a no-brainer. We have a lot of no-brainer streets. Again, using our money to stretch it and leverage it to get more is something we do take into consideration. We do think we can get funding to help with 19th Avenue because of the thoroughfare that it uses. You're right, it's not on this list, and we do have a price breakdown on it. We could give you an idea what it's going to be. I know it's around $3 million to do that street.
What was the program suggested it would be eligible for?
I believe it's STP funding. I may be getting my acronyms wrong. I've gone through a lot of them here lately, but Laura Clower is our civil engineer. She's I don't know, maybe Laura, if you're on, maybe you can speak to that a little bit. If I'm getting that wrong a little.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, it could take years for certain projects. I mean, if you wanted a complete reconstruction and intersection, I mean, a whole overhaul, yeah, those can take longer. Those are obviously longer type projects. But when we're talking reconstructions without utilities, where maybe utility work isn't needed, or resurfacing projects, a lot of these maintenance time where we're gonna fix the roads in the places that they're at without acquiring right of way, without doing some of these other things that some of these larger projects do drag on, working with railroads, things like that. Yeah, we can get projects like that out fairly quickly. Yeah, I'll pour you a sidewalk tomorrow if we need to.
Thanks, Joe. Regarding some of these streets, and I'm not familiar with all of them, but ones that have traffic signals, are we abandoning doing the loops in the ground and we're going cameras up above now, or because that seems to be a lot more flexible as we do road diets and things like that?
So we'll evaluate those. It would be staff's recommendation to use the cameras. We feel that those, yeah, there's a lot of flexibility with them. There's a little bit more maintenance, but yeah, the usability of them, the flexibility is huge. I mean, they're more consistent than the loops. You know, there are some other technologies that we've talked about with our traffic operations specialists, some radar type, some radar type detections. But yeah, absolutely, cameras is something that I know we would like to move forward. And if you're looking through this list here, I did put some money in here for light or intersection upgrades. You know, I talked about that a couple months ago with you. We have some that are just deteriorating. They're getting old. They can use some upgrades on them, and that could include cameras. It could include battery backup systems. It can include some of these things that we'll be discussing in the next week, 2 weeks with you. But yeah, I mean, cameras would be our preference. It is a little bit more expensive, but we can evaluate that on a site-by-site basis.
It's really refreshing. I appreciate that you're looking forward here, and your time frame that you're doing it is great. I really appreciate the work you're doing.
Sure.
If you don't mind asking another question. So Laura, if you're on the phone, and Joe and Marty and gosh, anybody else who wants to chime in. So we're really super good about on the floor here talking about a certain project, and then somebody says, yeah, it needs this. And then we just kind of forget about it, and then it's a year later and we're like, hey, what about that? So Laura, you say STP funds for 19th Avenue. What do we need to do to start initiating that process so we can get somebody to help paying for this and so that we can get this thing moving? Because, I understand it takes a while but we've done one block of the 16 and the one block is great and it's a concrete reconstruction, but the other 15 on 19th Avenue certainly do need addressed, and I don't want to wait another year to, because it was a really hot topic for 5 minutes and then it dropped out of favor and we didn't think about it again. So what do we need to do to keep that thing moving?
One thing.
Alderman Potter, did you have a question?
No, I was wondering when it was.
Alderman Parker?
So the $3 million that you talk, and I'm going to just keep going, banging on 19th Avenue. The $3 million that you talk about, is that $3 million constructed to federal standards to be able to use these funds? Because I've learned, if I've learned nothing, I've learned there's no such thing as free money. It usually costs us a lot of money to get free money. Is that if we just go through and, just asphalt it and, dig up manholes or whatever, do what we have to do to make it nice to our standards, or is this to federal standards? And then a follow-up question to that is, depending upon the answer to that, okay, so what's the alternative, if it's to our standards, then what does it cost for federal standards? And if that's federal standards, what could we do it if we just paid out of pocket?
Laura, I'm going to let you answer that one as well.
So I guess maybe I missed it, but do we need a motion from the floor to start pursuing those federal funds through God, I can't think of the name.
By state.
By state thing?
I don't know.
Or is that just something like if you want to, you're just going to go do it?
I believe we need to wait until it's let, the funds are let out by the federal government. I don't think it's something we can pursue until it's available.
Okay. Can someone, as soon as that becomes available, would somebody please alert us to that so we can move forward with
If
it?
Bi-State has authority over it, we have the transportation representatives, the technical part of it, and so they negotiate which community is going to get what, if that's what we're talking about. The money that flows through Bi-State, I don't know if, JD, you've been to those meetings. Maybe you could approach the podium and explain that.
Yes, Your Honor, and Laura is a representative on there, as well as Jeff Anderson, and they go to those transportation meetings there, and so we're made aware. As a matter of fact, one of the things I was going to leave with you tonight, but I'll just mention now, is we've sent Marty 3 different ITEP grant locations that we're looking at now for the grant window that's open for the different transportation grants, for multi-use paths and things, so we'll be bringing those to you soon. That's a Bi-State award that'll be coming forward.
So I remember at the end of last year, and Alderman Waldron, maybe you remember this too, Bi-State would give us an update on which communities had produced projects for consideration, and we didn't have any, and then apparently, maybe that was resolved. I remember asking about it, but
There was nothing on the list for Moline.
In that SEDS document, I think it was, that was an update, wasn't that a intramural update or something like that? And that, yeah, those were all submitted. I think that's back when the land development manager was kind of new in that position and hadn't gotten those put in yet, and they got included.
I think that that's what Alderman Parker is asking, though. Where are we in this process? Why isn't this process happening? And so those are the kind of updates I think that would be
Yeah, it's
helpful.
fine.
So we
It's a
know
black box to us.
What-
I'd like it done, but then it goes off into, I have no idea what we
what
have to do.
projects are being considered,
Okay.
and how are they ranking compared to our, our partners' projects? So it could be that the projects we have submitted there, we have no chance of getting an allocation for. Alderman Potter.
Isn't there like a matrix that they use for review of these STP grants through bi-state or whatever? I thought that's what had been mentioned before.
For the STP ones, I'll let Laura probably speak to what the strategy is to get your scoring on those. The different ones, like the one that we're waiting for the answer back on IEMA for the lift station down at 50th Street, the one that we're looking at relocating. We ran it through those folks, and obviously we had a professional engineering partner consult with us to make sure that we tried to get the highest scores on that matrix. So that's why that one's on that list that has the 7 and the 2 potential that we think that we're going to score high with, because we've been given every indication that those would probably receive funding.
Laura, if you could answer, is there some kind of a matrix that the STP grants through bi-state are ranked? Okay.
Alderman Parker.
So has 19th Avenue ever been discussed as being one of our desired, is it STP, like the oil? FTP, what is it?
What does that acronym stand for, and then it'll make sense to us?
I don't want to be calling it the wrong thing.
I think it stands for Surface Transportation Grant.
So STP.
And I would ask Jeff, I know Jeff and maybe not Laura, but Jeff Anderson, I see that he's at least up on there. He could probably tell you in years past, if he can recall, which different projects maybe had been elevated by us to get those STP. And then I think Daryl, our construction manager's connected. He could probably tell you where most recently we've used STP grant funds that were awarded.
I don't think we want to know what has happened in the past. I think we want to know what's in queue for the future.
Yeah, I know we talk about it amongst the 9 of us, but is anybody taking it somewhere and saying, hey, 19th Ave, and I don't know the process of doing that. I'm sure it's a super formal process, but taking it and saying, hey, 19th Avenue is something we'd like to have partner with federal funds, STP grants, whatever. And then if that's not the case, let us know so we don't think it's like in a queue somewhere. If it's never going to happen, let us know so we can figure out other ways to pay. Because there are other ways to pay for this other than letting somebody else do it. I want to move on this as quickly as possible. This is kind of one of the main thoroughfares that brings people into our city, and it goes past several businesses, several homes, takes you to several businesses and other thoroughfares. I mean, I'm looking at your scoring matrix. I think it probably checks a lot of those boxes. From our perspective, again, I don't know what they do at bi-state, but I want to be sure things keeps moving. So if it's not queued up, if it's never going to get queued up, please tell us so we can queue it. Or if we desire to do it, we can queue it up.
Understood.
Let's move on with the presentation.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
It's all right. Thank you. Yeah, Alderman Schoonmaker, or was it Alderman Went? I thought I heard Alderman. question for Laura. When they do those ranges on those grants, aren't they really awarding it and then you have that much time to spend it? It's not like that's our window and we can't get access to another batch of grants until after the 2024, is it, Laura? Thank you.
And one thing we can do is continue our engineering on it. We have the surveying done and keep, as we have time, plugging that together. And, I mean, that's one thing I know we can do to keep moving forward on our end. And as it becomes available, we'll be ready. And if it doesn't become available and you say shoot, we'll put that one on our budget, you know? So those are things that I know we can do right now.
Thank you.
Alderman Wayne, you did have a question about the priority matrix in this quadrant. I'm sure there are other resurfacing projects that might score higher in different areas. Like I said, in an effort to keep our contractors in that area, that's one of the reasons we do it by quadrant. Whether we go clockwise, I don't remember if we went clockwise this time or if we jumped around because of 74 and other things that we have going on. But again, yeah, we can look into that certainly. And if we decide to put a lot of money into resurfacing this year, we may have to look other quadrants anyway to fulfill those money and spend them, you know, spend them more wisely, you know, and get more bang for our buck that way. So. Sure, absolutely understand. So that, again, that's the quadrant that we have identified this year. These are our two locations for alley reconstructions we've identified. The first on the bottom left is to complete the alley behind the new Kickstart Coffee off 19th Avenue and 7th Street. When that business opened, the owners repaired a portion of that alley per their development agreement, per their design and contract, because they were using that alley as part of their egress ingress for their drive-through. We partnered with them to extend that a little bit further beyond their limits to get past their site, so that because this is one of our worst alleys as well. We have commercial, we have businesses on it, but we did that so that when we go to reconstruct this, we don't have to interrupt their business operations. They'll be able to continue their traffic through. So that was a good partnership we took with them this year. So we have that one, and then this other one is up. I'm not exactly sure the address of that one, but it again rates as one of our lowest alleys. We have a separate alley rating index for any concrete or asphalt alleys. Again, we pick those based on that specifically. We may weight it if it's commercially or traveled pedestrian, maybe downtown, but we picked these two sites for 2021.
So when you do alley reconstructions, is this because I don't see them very often, is this like a full-on tear it all out, reconstruct it with concrete, or is it just take the asphalt overlay and just shoot through it? And
oftentimes they're so far gone that they're reconstructions. We take them out and redo them.
Okay.
If we could, if it's possible to overlay or do something like that, then we would. But typically, by the time we get to it and pick it, it's so far gone that it's basically a reconstruction.
Okay, thanks.
One of the projects we identified, and this one, again, not our worst street, but it's in the middle of projects we've already completed. It finishes that 34th Avenue thoroughfare. We get a lot of calls in this area because of the construction and before and after it. Again, we take all those considerations, not just PCI, but some of the others that go along with it. We've had this one in the queue for a long time, and I think it's a good time to finish this one as well. Kind of an explanation on that. This is at Jane Addams School retaining wall. I know we had talked about this with Rebuild Illinois funds. This is a retaining wall on the sidewalk going up towards the school. It's on right of way. It's leaning out. You can kind of see that level, the yellow stick. It is level and it's leaning out 4 inches. It should probably lean back 4 inches in that span. So it's ending its useful life. We can. It's a $200,000 project. We haven't reached out to the school to partner with them on anything or look at other alternatives, but a pedestrian concern near a school, it weighted pretty heavy on us.
Alderman Waldron?
That's one of my questions about this one. This one's been on the list for a number of years that Scott Hinton was always referencing that we need to get at this wall. And I'm glad to hear that we're going to try to partner with the school because this is aesthetics really for the school district. And part of my thought on this project for a long time is, can we taper the ground back so we don't need a wall? Because long term, that would be more beneficial than keep fixing this wall year after year or every 10 years whenever it comes up. So I'd like to see different engineering scenarios to not have to put a wall back up. In other words, can we taper that land? We may need the school district, a portion of it's probably the school districts, but if they're not willing to contribute, which they have not been up to this point, we need to look at other alternatives. Because we've got a nice decorative wall there for them that they don't take any ownership on.
I can't take your thank yous on that. Alderman Wendt had sent me an email before the meeting and had questions on that, and I just wanted to bring them up. And
nice job, Mike.
Yep, he's on it.
This one is substandard. I mean, we don't put in
No,
these block walls. Why
the wall
would we
is
put that
poor.
one in?
I'm not questioning the wall, but if the school district doesn't want to
I
participate.
mean, I think you're right. I don't know why we would replace it with another, wall of that quality, right?
Yeah.
We don't normally do block walls, do we?
You
When
know, I'm
they're
not sure
city
what we
walls?
do. I mean, it's not a real
Not
tall
one
wall,
that high
so
anymore.
I don't want a 12th Street,
No, no.
but.
I believe that was done when 53rd Street was reconstructed, wasn't it?
That portion, yes.
again, these are great feedback ideas. We really appreciate it. And this is why the committee, the CIP committee, that's going to really help us focus, look at all the alternatives before we have to do it here on the floor.
Well, what I'm afraid of, though, is we're just regurgitating back things that have been told to us over the years. I don't know if it's necessarily true. I think we're open, but at this level, we're going to have recommendations, justifications in order for us to make a decision. We
Sure.
can't just do it on intuition. We just don't have the background for it.
Right, and I know it's regurgitation for you, but I'm hearing it for the
And
first
if you
time.
look at the aerial there,
But don't take it for true, because we just heard it before.
Absolutely.
if you look at the aerial, and I know they're not exact, that's probably right of way that's running north-south on the right side of the red lines. And you can go back. Yes. It's not exact, but you can go back quite a ways on our right of way to remove that wall. And it just helps us long-term.
Well, I would hope that if that's our path, that the school would support us going back even further to get a mobile.
Yeah. They don't have anything there. The first thing is that mobile classroom, that little white dot you see.
Mhm.
That's a mobile classroom that they utilize. That's the first thing that they have there.
Thank you.
So, on something like that, I mean, again, it just goes back to you, and I know your team is great, but then we don't see much about it. It seems like it's a fairly easy fix, to go to the schools, try to partner with them. If they don't, just tell them, we're gonna take the right of way and try to slope it back to be reasonable. Is that something we should, I can't imagine it's gonna cost tons of money, is it?
Plant some natural grasses, let them grow on the hillside.
Is that something we could just
Go.
move forward with tonight and get it off our plate?
You are. Does Laura, can you give us guidance on that? Is that a cheap fix to just grade it? Or is that a ridiculously expensive fix? We'll take that as action, move ahead, we'll do it this year.
Yeah, can staff bring that back to us as soon as possible? And that's pretty soon, not like a year from now. With options and costs, and I'd love to get this off our plate and just do
Sure.
it. I mean, we're not talking $1 million, 10 grand is, we do change orders more than that all the time.
Sure.
Alderman Nguyen? Aldrin. Yeah.
He's got his chainsaw warmed up
Not
already.
anymore. But anyway, let's move. Small project that engineering can come back with a recommendation to us on.
Yeah, so this one Alderman Went had touched on a little bit earlier, 7th Street. This goes from 19th Avenue down to 35th Avenue Place. Again, we're going to look at this through a complete streets lens, okay, road diet. Narrow the lanes, add bike lanes on the street. And one of the things we did here, and it's not illustrated on this, and I can bring it to you in a final design, is near Hamilton School. Because of the road diet, we're able to again add loading zones for school time drop off, similar to what we're planning to do on 12th Avenue. From I believe it's, and Alderman, you might know for sure, but I think from 34th Avenue north to the school or to the Metrolink bus lane drop off there is kind of what we had talked about for a loading zone, possibly on the 7th Street. Right. Laura, if you can speak to that, this is one of your grant. This is actually number 1 on your grant summary list there. 48th Street path. This one should go in 2021. I believe this is a Safe Routes to School grant. Again, it's we are getting funding for it. It looks like it's a $200,000 grant, and it'll cost us $150,000. So this grant maxed out at $200,000, and I think we did some widening of the path at this location, and that kind of upped our costs a little bit. But this is a project we have proposed. Again, we are leveraging our money to get money on something like this. So, and here is that map of all of our upcoming federally funded projects, and it's a list. Now, on this CIP spreadsheet, you'll notice a few of, a lot in the future, and one up in the top, I have a number in parentheses in front of the project. That correlates with this list. And then we have a summary of this map as well, kind of giving you an idea what the funding is from, what the project is, and anticipated construction. We have a lot of them anticipated for 2022. And that's all I have on this presentation portion of it. I'm going to give it over to Tony. If you guys have any other questions for me specifically, I take them now.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay, good evening. So for water and sewer, the prime focus is going to be continuing our efforts to resolve the red water issue. We're also going to be looking at reducing the number of lead water services we have. And then for WPC, we're going to be looking at attacking some areas that have high infiltration and inflows that cause some overflow conditions. So if you look at this map here and recall that we talked about red water last in the early winter of last year, and I told you at that time that we were down to 31 locations where we had this this problem, and so we're down to 29. And what our plan is to continue with an investment of around $500,000 in trenchless projects. If you look at that map there, there's quite a concentration of customers that are affected. Those are the red dots, and then the orange lines represent the red water locations. There's a concentration over by the Homewood area, and so working with Laura to try and target that area for projects for 2021. And then the lead and copper rule is a federal drinking water standard, and as you know, it's gotten quite a bit of attention over the last 5 or 7 years, and there's regulations that are coming forward that will require all community water systems to remove all of the lead water services. In Illinois, there was some discussion at the stakeholder level where the regulators interacted with stakeholders, and there was a time frame of 10 years batted around, but that since has been taken off the table. Either way, we think the responsible thing to do is to start attacking these lead water services, and we want to devote $350,000 to that, and we would work with engineering to let a contract to a plumbing contractor to start working on those. We already, as part of our maintenance activities in a reactionary basis, mainly to tackle leaking services, remove about 60 a year, and we believe that $350,000 would allow us to remove another 70 to 80 services a year in addition to the 60 we're already removing.
Tony, do you mean 515? That's what's down.
550?
515,000 is what's listed under 2021 lead service replacements.
Yes, if that's what you say, yes.
Okay. And you mentioned that this is not mandated. Do you have any feeling for when this may be mandated?
This is coming as part of legislation from the Trump administration, and this is the only, lead and copper rule changes are the only drinking water change that is being moved forward by the US EPA. As far as your question, next year or two, probably.
And for information's sake, just so everybody is aware, we're talking about our side. We're not talking about the private side, the homeowner side, correct?
That is partially correct. In Moline, as you all know, we own and maintain the portion of the water service between the main and the curb box, and we would be responsible for those. The legislation that's being pushed forward requires community water systems to remove the entire water service. And the regulators are depending on the community water system to figure that out between them and the customer, depending on who's responsible for which.
Is there any anticipation for grants since this is an unfunded mandate?
There is low interest loan availability through Illinois EPA. And then there is also potential grant funding, if the legislation moves forward.
So this 500,000 is going to not only go to our side, it's going to go to the private side when you pick the ones you're going to do.
Very good question. Actually, the fortunate thing for us in Moline is that lead between the curb box and the house is very rare. It's you know, you could probably count them on all your hands and toes. We have
So it's
20 or
mainly-
25 in the whole
Mainly
city.
on our side.
Yes, mainly on our side.
Thank you.
This is a WPC project. If you recall, in 2018, the sewer was replaced on 18th Street B, going south on Avenue of the Cities. It's a very deep sewer, and WPC had wanted to go out into Avenue of the Cities and replace the segment in red. But there was traffic conflicts related to I-74 construction, and there's been a lot of money spent and staff time spent performing maintenance activities on that red segment. So we plan to move forward with reconstruction of this main in 2021. It's very deep, so it will require complete pavement reconstruction and some storm utility or storm sewer and water main replacement as well. If you also recall that while John Deere Road was being reconstructed, we had a casing pipe installed at the location shown in red. And we did that because we have a tendency to have sanitary sewer overflows along the pipe on the north side of John Deere Road going to the west of where that red line is. And so our intent is to install a new sewer pipe in the red casing pipe connected into our system and tie those lines, create a second line underneath John Deere Road. The existing line under John Deere Road then would be able to be isolated and lined. It's got some structural issues with it. We can't line it until we get a new main in service there because of the lack of the ability to bypass there. So this project is intended to alleviate some of the sanitary sewer overflows. And then just as a matter of information, there's an additional casing pipe that was installed to the east that we intend long-term to construct a bypass sewer down to the interceptor.
Here we go.
We have currently have council earlier this year authorized us to engage with an engineering partner to study the interceptor along River Drive, and we continue to have some sanitary sewer overflows there. This project comes on the heels of the investment at the North Slope Wastewater Treatment Plant, where we greatly improved the pumping capacity and the ability to receive water at the plant. What this project does, what the study is going to tell us is how much water can we put through this, what's called a siphon. It's an engineering device that allows us to go down and back up again underneath that that drainage ditch without causing any further overflows down to the west in the more populated and developed areas of downtown. This area is just downstream from a major pumping station, so we need to very closely look at the results of the study, but we anticipate that there will be some recommendation to improve this siphon. We don't know exactly what it'll be yet, so Laura has included an allocation in the CIP for this.
When do you expect the results of the study?
We have had some good, decent wet weather, and they're compiling data now. I would expect we should have something in the next month or so.
So you would be able to get in 2021 still?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the other portion of funds that we want to invest for WPC is in lining of sewer mains and sanitary sewer manholes. Davenport has been very successful in their efforts to combat infiltration in from manholes into their sewer system. And we've kind of shadowed them in their efforts to do that over the last number of years. And And so we want to do a similar endeavor to try and tackle some of these older manholes throughout town where the rainwater and groundwater just is constantly leaking in. Same thing goes for sanitary sewer lining. We have had a history of lining sanitary sewers over the years and have gotten away from it over the last number of years, but want to get back into that. The idea with the lead water services and these sewer main linings is that we would target these areas that Joe described earlier, these quadrants that are going to be overlaid or possibly reconstructed in future years. And these lead water service and sanitary sewer lining projects might have they will necessarily have some incidental street cuts. So we would come in advance and do this type of work, and then follow up with some street repairs and overlays. So any questions related to utilities?
I have a question. I remember a couple of years ago, and I can't remember the name we used, but it's access to the storm sewer off the roads. What do you call those? It's the side, there aren't manholes there. On the curb?
Catch basins.
Catch basins, yeah. Where are those? We used to do a certain number a year because we had to get them all done. So
Yep.
what's the story with those?
There will be an allocation in the CIP for inlets. We typically budget $100,000 in maintenance programs. That would have been in, is that in your, yeah, that's in that sheet that Joe showed.
Oh.
It's on the sheet.
100,000.
The first page?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Inlet replacements.
And it's proposed, I believe, to come from storm utility funds.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you very much. Looking at the very few number of red water sites we have right now, I remember when I first got on, that whole wall was filled with a map and it was red with red water sites. So you guys done a great job. I'd say keep going as fast as you can to get those done.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
What happened to the chemical study?
We presented the results of that chemical study to you back in early winter of last year, and the decision from council at the time was to not move forward with that, but instead to implement the fee exemption for the customers.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I was thinking that was just a preliminary study, but those are the final results. They were
Yes.
unsuccessful. Thank you. Yes, Alderman Witt.
From a water supply standpoint, the reserves are stable, and I think I would defer to Carol or Marty, but I would say that I wouldn't recommend spending any additional reserves on capital work from the water fund. But with regard to WPC, we just received our new permit for South Slope. And the permit has some new provisions for phosphorus limits, and it offers some options. And so it's our intent to bring forward that permit and all of its content to you all with the idea of getting a policy decision from council with regard to how to proceed. If, depending on how council decides to proceed, that's going to have a bearing on the WPC reserves.
Thank you. Yes, I can't do anymore, but I'm sorry.
The only formal action that I believe that we have reserved is all the way back in 2013 when the council approved the financial model and the series of rate increases for WPC, where there was money in that financial model set aside for dewatering improvements and also design improvements for future facility work at the South Slope wastewater treatment plant. So those design improvements, will be in the millions of dollars. That we will necessarily need, though, some direction from council on how you all want to proceed with that. Does that answer your question?
Alderman Potter?
I have a question along the line. So you're gonna, that was one of the questions that I asked at that finance meeting was, I'm assuming that some of the reserves in WPC are dealing with, well, we have the dewatering issue at North Slope, and then we have significant issues with the age of the South Slope plant. And so you'll bring those forward to us soon and let us know what portion of those funds are earmarked for engineering or construction costs for future plant improvements.
I'm working on a project action report from Marty as we speak.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, is that it?
I think that's all we have right now. I do want to just say that I look forward to your guys' feedback, good, bad, impartial. Really want to know kind of how far we want to spend our funds down. You guys, if we get some direction from council, we could have a list of projects ready in a week. So we're really looking for that feedback. We're really looking to work with Marty, with our team, and with you to bring back a CIP that you guys can approve now, and then going forward in the future, direction that we're going to move to accomplish all the goals you all have. So.
Alderman Wendt, and then I'll go to you, Alderman Waldron. You're on mute, Alderman Wendt.
Thank you.
If we could add that much workload, we would need help. We would need additional engineering techs to assist with the inspections. I mean, yeah, we would have to increase manpower one way or the other. If you guys ask to spend, instead of $10 million, $20 million, and we're doubling the amount of work we're doing, we're going to need additional help. I mean, we can't do double the work with the staff we have at this point, but we can prepare it. We can facilitate it, and we can. If that's a council goal, we'll work with our team and with our staff to accomplish that one way or the other. And with your involvement and with our team's involvement, yeah, I'm confident we can, if you decided to bond and spend go for the gusto, we'd be there in support, and we would help figure out a way to get that done.
Alderman Waldron?
Joe, similar to Alderman Parker's issue with 19th Avenue, one that's been on my radar for quite a while is 26th Avenue behind the high school. I think we can all relate to what poor condition that road is in, and it also looks like it would be a prime candidate for a road diet. And so I was interested if that's been considered, where it came in the matrix. So if you could send that information out to us, at least it's similar to 19th Avenue. I'd like to know what its status is or where it's going.
Sure. Yeah, we tried to road diet that one this year. We ran into some obstacles. Same thing with River Drive down from the Rock Island border. As we get into complete streets and as we begin this process, even on 12th Avenue Learning Curve next to the school, adding those loading zones, we're identifying those problems and we're seeing them, but we're coming up with ways to go. But yeah, I'm not sure where that landed in our matrix. It was a road diet candidate, and we had considered that all the way to 2 Avenue of the Cities around the corner. But yeah, we can definitely send those out. And these documents we have available. Like I said, in your communications, if you want to ask me directly, Laura, we'd be happy to share whatever tools we have and use. We'd be happy to share them with you.
Thank you.
Alderman Parker? Oh, I thought you had a question. No?
I have nothing.
Sorry, Mr.
Happy to be here.
I'm stretching and running, sorry.
What?
I was stretching.
Oh, no, I thought it was Alderman Parker.
We're just happy on this side of the room over here.
So I guess my feedback is that I think that we need more information to give you feedback. And so I think that it would probably be better for our council if we had like a list and then an understanding of, what are the advantages of this project and the advantages of that project. One thing that's a little concerning to me is how different it is off of our 5-year CIP plan. It's not even recognizable. And so what's happening with that, and how do we decide what to do next year when we don't know what the clear plan is and prioritization for the following years, because it confuses the story. There are some projects that if we did this year, then you get to invest less money and have a longer life. And I'm not seeing enough information to make those kinds of decisions. When Janine had up our work session list of potential priorities, one of those priorities is doing 6 miles worth of roads a year. And we aren't even close to that with not only this next year's proposal, but the subsequent 2 years. And so we need that opportunity to understand what that is, how much it costs, and how we get it done. You have to, I feel like we at least need to understand that so that we can have that conversation of how do we achieve that goal. That's not a length that we made up, that came from the engineering department, and I'm confident that number of miles still stands in order to maintain the quality of roads that we've got today. So that's my general feedback of what I'd be looking for the next time this comes before us. Alderman Went. Alderman Went.
You're on mute.
You're still on mute, Alderman Went. Your hand's up, but you're up.
Yeah, Laura, if you're still on, if you could answer that question. I believe it's not, the money's not available or wasn't available to us this year, but I'll let Laura would have a better history on that. Yeah, and we are bringing that one to you to spend the money for the engineering to complete it. And to your point, yeah, that's exactly where I want to go to. It does feel, and as we kind of went over this 2021 CIP, I did look forward to see how we could align what was in our budget last year for the 2, 3, 4, 5 years out, and put it into this. And you're right, it is discombobulated. It's not cohesive, and that's where, for me going forward, it's going to be a huge benefit that it's not just me putting this together. We have a team of people doing it, and that's going to keep that arrow pointing that direction. It's going to make sure that we follow that line. We hit those goals. We hit those milestones that we maybe set for ourselves and things like that. So I appreciate that, but that's exactly where I would like to go with it too.
Do you have anything else for us, Joe?
I do not.
Marty, do you have anything for us regarding the CIP? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'd now like to open it up for public comment. Is there anyone in the public that'd like to address the council? Do we have any?
Did not have any.
So we don't have anything for that. I believe that's all of our business for Committee of the Whole. I'd like to adjourn the Committee of the Whole and go into the council agenda. Alderman Wendt, will there be? Thank you. So we will begin the council agenda with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Alderman Williams,
Present.
Parker,
Present.
Wendt, Potter,
Present.
Moyer,
Present.
Schoonmaker, Waldron,
Present.
Berg. Your Honor, request approval of Committee of the Whole, Council and Executive Session Meeting Minutes of September 1st, 2020. Second reading ordinances. Council Bill 3026-2020, an ordinance amending Moline Ordinance Number 88-3-2, establishing an enterprise zone in the County of Rock Island, Illinois, pursuant to an intergovernmental agreement with the cities of East Moline, Illinois, Moline, Illinois, Silvis, Illinois, Rock Island County, Illinois, and the Village of Moline, Illinois, by revising Section 3, Exhibits A and B to include new territory within the Quad Cities Enterprise Zone. Resolutions. Council Bill 1095-2020, a resolution authorizing the mayor to make application to enter into an agreement and to execute all necessary assurances and certifications to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for community block grant entitlement funding under the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended for certain projects and programs for fiscal year 2020. And approving projects and program recommendations of the Citizens Advisory Council on Urban Policy for the use of 2020 Community Development Block Grant funds and the 2020 Annual Action Plan, which contains said projects and programs, and authorizing the mayor and city staff to implement those approved projects and programs upon the approval of the City of Moline 2020 Consolidated Plan, which includes the Annual Action Plan, by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and to exercise any and all powers required to obtain such funding and to implement those approved projects. Council Bill 1096-2020, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute and attest to a contract with Jim Guy's Commercial Roofing Incorporated for the Moline Library roof replacement in the amount of $633,400. Council Bill 1097-2020, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to approve and attest to an exception to the moratorium on hiring pursuant to Resolution 1051-2020 to hire 3 crossing guards and additional alternates.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Parker, a second by Alderman Moyer. Roll call, please.
Alderman Wendt. Potter.
Aye.
Moyer.
Aye.
Schoonmaker. Waldron.
Aye.
Berg. Williams.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries.
Non-consent agenda resolutions. Council Bill 1098-2020, a resolution authorizing the mayor and city clerk to execute a city artwork licensing agreement between the City of Moline and Moline Community Development Corporation to allow Moline Community Development Corporation to commission artists on behalf of the city to paint artwork on city planters as part of the Floreciente Streetscape project.
Motion to approve 1098, 2020.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Parker, a second by Alderman Moyer. Is there any discussion on that item? Roll call, please.
Alderman Nguyen? Potter?
Aye.
Moyer?
Aye.
Schoonmaker? Waldron?
Aye.
Berg? Williams?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries.
First reading ordinances. Council Bill 3027-2020, an ordinance amending Chapter 20, Motor Vehicles and Traffic of the Moline Code of Ordinances, Appendix 3, pedestrian crossing signals, by repealing the designation for mid-block on 16th Street between 25th Avenue and 26th Avenues. And that is all I have this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you, Janine.
Thank you.
So now I'd like to go into our council business, and I'll work around the room, if I can remember the sequence with everybody sitting in different spots. Alderman Williams, do you have anything this evening?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you. Alderman Parker?
Just a couple things. First of all, I do want to thanks the whole team for gathering up the debris from the windstorm. It's really done a great job. I'll get off that. This afternoon, I was sitting in my alley getting ready to go into my house, and I saw Moline's Finest at work. They were chasing apparently a red pickup truck. They were down 24th Avenue, down 25th Avenue, ended up at Garfield School, and you guys did a great job. I was a little concerned because that's a pretty heavily walked area with kids and everything, but it sounds like you guys did a fantastic job. Thank you and your troops for making Moline safer. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Nguyen? Thank you. Alderman Potter?
Yes, Your Honor. I've received a number of phone calls this week from residents expressing their satisfaction with the debris pickup and the efficiency and the courteousness of our staff, and just want to commend them for that.
Thank you. Alderman Moyer?
Nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you. Alderman Schoonmaker? Alderman Schoonmaker, that kind of brings up something that our city administrator has brought up to me, and I support it very much, is that I think that we need to do a better job in communicating on behalf of the city. We're kind of getting wagged by the tail here in many circumstances, and rumors run rampant. They get started by different sources, and so I'd like to pursue that, to be more proactive and more thoughtful in how we're explaining things to them. I gotta tell you, like you all saw the story about the debris. I mean, that was not kind of off, that was way off. And we're lucky that more of the community didn't pick it up from the online article. It's supposed to be in the paper tomorrow. If that had gone in the paper like that, we would have gotten a lot of phone calls. And so we just really have to kind of own some of this to make sure the community is getting accurate information. And if we need to fill that gap, we need to fill that gap. So I agree with you, Alderman Schoonmaker. It's quite disappointing. But anyway, sorry. Was that all you had, Alderman Schoonmaker? Thank you. Alderman Waldron.
I want to echo my fellow aldermen on the debris pickup. My only issue is let's start on the east side next time.
Good decision making, Marty, we appreciate it.
Negative.
That's all, Your Honor.
Fair enough. I think that they started with the hard stuff first. Okay. Alderman Burke?
Looked like your neighborhood was taken care of.
Thank you. So I have a couple of things. Is JD Schulte still here? I wanted to ask him.
Yeah, he's
about-
in the cow, it looks like.
JD, would you come back into the council chambers? I wanted to ask you about a couple of pieces of equipment. But while we're waiting for JD to join us, I attended the taming of the slough this Saturday as a observer. But they had a 25% increase in their participation this year. And the only hindrance was they didn't have access to kayaks, and so some of the participants couldn't get kayaks. And so I just wanted to give kudos to our friends at River Action for organizing a great event. Our Quad City Visitor Bureau, the Visit Quad Cities folks, are going to work with them next year. They have a lot of interest in activating our river, and so that's a cool thing to draw focus for our community to the riverfront. JD, I wanted to share with the council because I believe that they are unaware of a couple of situations. So when I got to go down, Marty coordinated a visit for me to go down to Public Works just so I could be better educated about a couple of things they're doing. And one of the things that came up was, well, actually, I knew about the other thing previous to the meeting, but we've got, JD, perhaps you could get the right wording for me if you could approach the podium so everybody can hear you. What, is it a grabber truck? What was damaged and was supposed to be bought this year, but I can't find it. I'm looking at the budget and I don't see where that truck was slotted to be replaced this year. What's going on with that?
In the budget,
truck?
are there truck numbers? It would have probably,
I'm looking at it and there's just nothing even close to that. So there's a Class B truck in streets. Would that fall into the streets category or would it fall into parks maintenance?
it would have been in streets, probably.
There's one vehicle and it's a Class 8 truck.
Yep, it's a Class 8, yeah. That's probably.
So $280,000.
Yeah, that would have been it, yep.
And so that was cut in the proposal that you made when you presented individually, but we never approved it, is that right?
It's one of the postponements that's in that, what Carol, I think, phrases is the COVID, I think the COVID column in the budget. And it was one of the recommended cuts to postpone till next year. And that's, I guess the common term grapple, I think is what you're referring to. Probably grapple's the common phrase.
Do you still feel like that's a good cut? I mean, I think if we had had that for the debris pickup, it would have been helpful, but.
I think every single item that hadn't been purchased, if I remember right, Mayor, please don't hold me to this, Sarah's probably not connected, but I think we had already ordered a chipper. I think we'd already ordered a stump grinder, maybe a skid steer. I think those things had already been purchased prior to March, and then everything else was suspended.
Do you still feel like we should leave it suspended?
I'd have to look at her list and probably want to go over it too. Some of those items that were suspended, they probably brought in and had to shore them up, to extend their useful life. And I'd want to know, obviously.
Oh, I'm just talking
most of
about that grapple truck.
Yeah, I'd want to talk to her, I guess, and see what they've been doing for alternatives. I know Marty authorized Greg and Rod today to get an attachment for our skid steer that can work on a lower height collection, and that nothing like what the grapple can do, but it's definitely an alternative in some applications.
And then the other thing that came up was the 7th of our 7 vacuum. I don't know how you describe,
The leaf vacuum?
what is the name? Yeah, leaf vacuum, is that what they call it?
Yeah, leaf vacuum.
Titans, whatever. So one of those is disabled? What's going on with it? Or it's completely, I don't find it on the list either, but maybe you could direct me to what that would be called on the list.
It's a leaf vacuum. I don't think it was on the replacement schedule for this year. I think it's probably going to be, if it's one of there's 3 that are up here, the 3 that are similar, and there's 4 that are similar. I'd say that one's probably on a 20 22, 2023 replacement schedule.
No, it doesn't work anymore.
I think it's the one that has a bad engine, right? Is that the one that you're talking about?
Yeah, my understanding was it's out of commission, we can't use it this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, I
You're not
think,
seriously gonna wait till 2023 to replace it?
No, I think
are you?
I'll have to go back, maybe ask Marty, because I know Marty and Sarah had some communications back in August about it. I think it has a bad engine that was discovered when they brought it in doing their pre-season checkout. There's some antifreeze that got in. I think it had engine failure. They had some communication that went back and forth. I asked Sarah to send it to me, I know, and I think they decided to put the engine in next year instead. I don't know, I'd let him speak to it because he probably has.
That was Sarah's recommendation, was to do it next year, but this is the engine that we could replace now, and it would cost about, I think, between $15,000 and $20,000. And when I talked to Sarah today, she said it could probably be ordered and be here within the next 7 to 10 days, which means essentially we could get it up and running before leaf pickup.
Yeah, I just think we need to have that conversation, because I got the impression when I was meeting that it was like a council directive to not replace that equipment, and that makes me quite panicked, because I don't want to influence the difficulties with leaf.
So if the council wanted to direct us to move forward with that,
We
we can
wouldn't
get it done.
normally get involved, but that was the impression I got, was that you
But it
weren't
wasn't
doing it
budgeted,
because the
so.
council didn't want you to. Alderman Parker?
I make a motion that staff move forward to purchase whatever it takes to get the leaf vac up and
Okay.
running.
We have a motion by Alderman Parker, a second by Alderman Wint. Is there any discussion on this item?
It is critical to have 7. There's 2 in each zone.
I-
If something goes
Well,
down.
there's 3 in one zone. I'm like an expert on it now.
Well, that's true. How they fall.
I know
but-
too much.
But
I agree with
it's
you. It's
critical to
just,
have
it was
one
very
reserve.
disturbing. I wanted the council to at least know that we're about to come up on something that's gonna be really a bad deal. Yeah, go ahead, Alderman Schoonmaker. Yeah, and I think that has kind of been a chronic problem through this, because I have gotten feedback from the community and from staff, individual staff people, that such and such because, and there's no truth in the because. So if there is any, argument against why we're not delivering a service to the community, and it's because there better have been a motion on the floor that caused that, because that's the frustrating part to me. I want at least an opportunity to address something without impacting services to our community, so.
We'll get it taken care of.
I appreciate that, thank you. Alderman Parker?
Marty, before you go too far, how are we doing on the replacement of the generator down here?
We are in process of getting an RFP put together to do a design build for that. The generator's gonna have to go outside now. The old generator's in the basement.
Okay.
And so the new way of putting in generators next to buildings is to do it outside. And so, of course, we need to make sure that we do it right, and so that we're in process. So,
any idea when that's going to be?
It's going to take a little bit of a time, because we got to get the right specs and then get that bid out, and then get it built. So.
Don't we only have 4 weeks? I thought we only had the leased generator for 4 weeks.
Yeah, we have a leased one right now, month to month.
Oh.
So.
$14,000 a month, right?
No, it wasn't. It was.
That's good.
That was a total for 3 months. I believe.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
good.
Sure this is cleaned up. Didn't you make a motion? Not voted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you.
We did make a motion. It was with such force that just soon they were gonna do it.
What did he say?
Could we have a roll call, please? It's the motion on
Leaf.
proceeding with replacing that,
Okay.
addressing the disabled leaf vacuum. I don't think we care if it gets replaced or it gets repaired.
Alderman Went?
Alderman Wynn. You're on mute, Alderman Witt.
Potter,
Aye.
Moyer,
Aye.
Schoonmaker, Waldron,
Aye.
Berg, Williams,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
8 ayes, no nays.
That motion carries. Thank you, Dirk, for doing my job for me. Thank you, Chief. You're just, he's fixing everything tonight. So now I'd like to turn it to staff. Does anyone on staff want to address the council this evening?
I just got good news. Mayor, you had pushed in terms of getting the mobile office for the police department out there as a possible use of CARES funds. And the DCO offered a question and answer session, and we got the news back finally today that it will be eligible for CARES fund money. We just need to show how we're using it with code. So that's really good news. That was, you took that little gamble and it paid off.
Thank you. And we got I'm assuming the sanitation of the bathrooms is all good to go too?
Yep. Well, that was approved.
That was easy. Good. Super. That's good news. Anything else? Marty, do you have? Oh, Chief, come on.
Real quick, I know we're getting late. I just wanted to mention to the council that yesterday, Crime Stoppers of the Quad Cities held their annual golf outing to raise money to continue the program and also provide P3 campus tips in the schools. It's a major fundraiser. I actually would just like to recognize Donna Bell, who many of you know was the wife of the fallen John Bell, who was a judge, was very active, the president of Crime Stoppers, and died suddenly last year and was renamed the John Bell Memorial Golf Outing this year. Great turnout, great support, unbelievable help from the Bell family, which is a big relief, obviously, to both the board as well as Detective John Leach, who runs that Crime Stoppers program through the Moline Police Department. So on behalf of the Moline Police Department and Crime Stoppers, I'd just like to take that opportunity to publicly thank Donna Bell, the John Bell family, as well as the current president, Brandon Pribble, and then Detective John Leach for their hard work. It's a fantastic program in our community that really helps not only the Moline Police Department, but many police departments solve crimes in an anonymous fashion, helps us deliver services and receive tips in a socially distant manner as well, and then it also helps keep our schools safe. So just wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. All right, I'd now like to open it up for public comment. I believe there's no public comment. Is there any further business for our meeting this evening? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Yay!